Chapter 748. Qianyu held a jar of wine in its paws and was about to rush back to Hefeng Garden to invite Ji Tianqing to taste the wine. However, it saw a strange scene just now. It clearly saw a tall and thin servant girl walk up to the statue by the roadside. In the blink of an eye, a young man walked out from behind the statue. Moreover, the back and appearance of the young man in white robes vaguely resembled Ji Tianqing. Qianyu was stunned. It shook its head vigorously and muttered to itself, "Ah, it was clearly a woman. How did she turn into a man in the blink of an eye? And he looks like old Ji. Could it be that I drank too much and my eyes were playing tricks on me?" Qianyu was full of doubts. It quickly flew behind the jade statue and looked around. The result was obvious. There was no one behind the statue. There was not even a shadow. That's not right. This is too strange. There must be a problem. No, I have to hurry back and find old Ji. Qianyu immediately sobered up. It realized that something was wrong and quickly turned around to return to Hefeng Garden. Swoosh. Qianyu hugged the wine jar and flew back to Hefeng Garden. As soon as it entered the courtyard, it did not have time to put down the wine jar. It rushed to Ji Tianqing's door. Old Ji, are you there?" Qianyu shouted through the door, its voice filled with anxiety. In the dimly lit room, Ji Tianqing's voice immediately sounded. "Qianyu, what happened?" Following his voice, the door opened with a creak. Qianyu rushed into the room and saw Ji Tianqing sitting on the bed, looking at it suspiciously. Seeing Ji Tianqing's posture, it was obvious that he had been meditating in the room. Seeing this, Qianyu was even more certain that something was wrong. It quickly said to Ji Tianqing, "Old Ji, on my way back I saw something strange. A servant girl went behind a statue by the roadside and turned into a man in the blink of an eye. He looked exactly like you." Ji Tianqing suddenly frowned and showed a puzzled expression. "Qianyu, are you drunk? What nonsense are you talking about?" Qianyu looked down at the wine jar and quickly placed it on the table. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a serious face and said in a serious tone, "Old Ji, I'm not drunk. I saw it with my own eyes." Ji Tianqing saw that it was clear-headed and didn't seem to be lying, so he said seriously, "Then tell me slowly what happened? It's like this when I came back just now." Qianyu hurriedly told the story in full detail, not concealing or omitting anything. After listening to its words, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned, and his face became somewhat gloomy. "You're saying that you personally saw a maid taking on my appearance and rushing toward the Thousand Cloud Palace?" "Yeah." Qianyu quickly nodded and said in a low voice, "Old Ji, I think this matter is very strange. I'm afraid there's some conspiracy." The Thousand Cloud Palace is Yun Yao's mother's palace. Why don't we quickly go and take a look? We don't want to cause any misunderstandings. Ji Tianqing also had the same idea and immediately got out of bed. "Let's go, we'll go quickly. I want to see who's playing tricks and what kind of tricks they're trying to play." As he spoke, he led Qianyu out the door. Inside the Thousand Cloud Palace, the lights were bright and the atmosphere was peaceful and solemn. Dressed in a white robe and disguised as Ji Tianqing, Yun Luo calmly walked through the corridor and stairs towards Bailey Ningxu's room. Along the way, when the servants and guards saw her, they all showed a respectful expression and respectfully saluted her, calling her young Master Ji. Yun Luo didn't pay attention to these servants and guards at all. Along the way she was silent and calm. A moment later she arrived outside Bailey Ningxu's room and said in a low voice, "Junior Ji Tianqing greets Madame Yun." Inside the luxurious and elegant room, Bailey Ningxu was sitting by the table in deep thought. Hearing Ji Tianqing's voice, she immediately recovered and said in a gentle voice, "Come in." The door opened and Yun Luo walked in, standing in front of Bailey Ningxu. "Tianqing greets Auntie. What instructions does Auntie have for summoning me in the middle of the night?" Yun Luo's voice and tone were exactly the same as Ji Tianqing's. Her posture was also neither servile nor overbearing, revealing a trace of confidence and pride. Bailey Ningxu looked at him with a gentle gaze and reached out a slender hand, indicating for him to sit down and talk. "Tianqing, you don't need to be so nervous. Auntie summoned you here to discuss a matter with you alone." Bailey Ningxu's expression and tone were very gentle. There was even a faint smile on her face. At this moment she had accepted Ji Tianqing from her heart. Her entire body was emitting the radiance of a mother, as well as the benevolence and bearing of an elder. "What does Auntie want to discuss with me?" Yun Luo pretended to sit down next to Bailey Ningxu as she spoke. Without a sound, she was already within 5 steps of Bailey Ningxu. This distance was the best for a Sky Origin stage expert to attack. One strike was sure to hit and there was no way to dodge. However, Bailey Ningxu wasn't prepared at all. She didn't know that this Ji Tianxing in front of her had already begun to emit a murderous intent. She lowered her head and held the teacup, gently sipping a mouthful of spirit tea. She was thinking of how to tactfully test Ji Tianxing's attitude. While she was deep in thought, Yun Luo's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. She secretly shouted in her heart, "Now!" At the same time, Yun Luo suddenly stretched out her right hand that was hidden in her sleeve. Holding a coldly flickering dagger, she ruthlessly stabbed it towards Bailey Ningxu's chest. The two of them were only 5 steps apart. She could reach Bailey Ningxu with just a stretch of her hand. Her speed was very fast. Moreover, it was an assassination that had been accumulating energy for a long time. It could be said that she was determined to succeed. The coldly flickering dagger was suffused with a blue light. It was obviously dipped in poison. Moreover, this dagger was prepared by Duanmu Huang for Yun Luo. It had already reached the level of a magic tool. There was nothing it couldn't pierce. Bailey Ningxu had just sensed that something was wrong. Before she could react, she only felt a blur in front of her eyes and a cold stab of pain came from her chest. Clang! The chopstick-length dagger ruthlessly stabbed towards Bailey Ningxu's left chest. However, it was blocked by something letting out a metallic sound. Yun Luo immediately sensed that something was wrong. She stared at Bailey Ningxu's wound and saw that she was actually wearing a tight-fitting soft armor. That dark golden soft armor was also a magic tool. Its defensive power was very strong. Although the dagger tore through the soft armor and successfully stabbed into Bailey Ningxu's chest. However, the position of the wound was a bit off. The dagger didn't pierce through her heart. Yun Luo desperately brandished his dagger, stabbing out dozens of cold lights, shattering Bailey Ningxu's attack. The violent energy exploded, immediately turning the luxurious and elegant room into a mess. Both the ground and the walls were cracked and dense cracks appeared on their surface. The tables, chairs and furniture in the room were all blown to pieces, splashing everywhere and creating muffled, ping-ping-ping sounds when they hit the walls. Yun Luo took this opportunity to pass through the scattered starlight, instantly arriving in front of Bailey Ningxu and stabbing his dagger towards her throat. Bailey Ningxu didn't have time to dodge and could only lean backwards to avoid this fatal blow. Rip. The dagger glowing with blue light tore through her robe and soft armor on her right shoulder, leaving behind a chopstick-sized wound. The wound was so deep that bone could be seen and blood immediately spurted out. Bailey Ningxu was sent flying by the powerful impact, crashing into a wall and tumbling into the living room outside the room. Her injuries were even more disastrous, and the poison in her body was difficult to suppress, fiercely erupting. She could no longer muster any strength and her entire body became limp and powerless. Black lines appeared on her snow-white cheeks. Bailey Ningxu still had the graceful posture of a mother, but now her hair was disheveled, her body was covered in blood, and her appearance was extremely miserable. The phoenix tail jade crown on her head and the golden buyao in her hair all fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Without waiting for her to crawl up from the ground, Yun Luo rushed over again. Die! Yun Luo coldly shouted with a murderous aura. He fiercely waved his dagger, fiercely stabbing it towards Bailey Ningxu's forehead. Seeing that Bailey Ningxu's strength was scattered, she was unable to block the attack and was about to lose her life. At this critical moment, the door was smashed into smithereens with a bang. 2 tall and sturdy figures rushed in like ferocious tigers. These 2 people were wearing silver armor and holding standard swords. They were clearly the guards of the Thousand Cloud Palace. Besides, they were both leaders of the guards who were at the 3rd level of the Sky Origin stage. Bold thief, hand over your life. You dare to assassinate the mistress, you're courting death. When the 2 guard commanders saw the situation in the room, they were so angry that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets as they shouted. The 2 of them rushed to Bailey Ningxu's side with the fastest speed in their lives. Without hesitation they stood in front of Bailey Ningxu, using their flesh and blood to block Yun Luo's attack. Puchi! The cold glint of the dagger instantly pierced through the throat of one of the guard commanders. A bloody hole appeared in the guard commander's throat as he spat out a mouthful of hot blood. His eyes widened on the spot as he stopped breathing and fell to the ground. The other guard commander was furious. He used all of his strength to brandish his sword, fiercely stabbing it towards Yun Luo. Yun Luo's attack was blocked. He immediately jumped back and brandished his dagger to fight with the guard commander. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bailey Ningxu hurriedly crawled up from the ground and retreated to the door. After exchanging 3 moves with the guard commander, Yun Luo heavily injured the guard commander and chopped off one of his arms. However, the sound of the battle had already alarmed the entire Thousand Cloud Palace. Countless dazzling flames lit up the palace. More than a dozen silver-armored guards were rushing over as fast as lightning. Even those loyal maids and maids hurriedly shouted for help and quickly came to rescue the mistress. Bang bang bang. Following a series of muffled footsteps, a noble young master dressed in luxurious clothes arrived with a few guards. The person was Zhu Fifan. As soon as he rushed into the room, he saw that the room was in a mess. There was also a guard commander's corpse lying on the ground. His concubine's clothes were stained with blood and her injuries were quite serious. She looked very miserable. And the person who assassinated Bailey Ningxu was actually Ji Tianxing. Zhu Fifan suddenly glared at him and shouted with shock and anger, "Ji Tianxing, it's actually you. You vicious bastard, you dare to assassinate the mistress?" Seeing Zhu Fifan rushing into the room with the guards, Yun Luo was immediately filled with anger and showed a strong resentment in her eyes. Although her heart was full of unwillingness, she had to accept the reality. Chapter 750. Yun Luo hated that she couldn't kill Bailey Ningxu quickly. Instead, she alarmed the guards of the Thousand Cloud Palace. By now, more and more guards and maids were rushing over. It was impossible for her to continue to assassinate Bailey Ningxu. If she continued to stay when the experts of the Yun family arrived, her identity would be exposed. Thinking of this, she suppressed the anger and killing intent in her heart and turned around to escape without hesitation. Bang! Yun Luo turned into a ball of golden light, crashed through the side window and escaped from Bailey Ningxu's room. In the blink of an eye, she escaped from the Thousand Cloud Palace and into the dark night, fleeing far away. Ji Tianxing, you bastard, don't think you can escape. In the room, Zhu Fifan cursed furiously. He subconsciously rushed forward and wanted to lead the guards to chase Ji Tianxing. However, he was only in the Yuan Dan stage and couldn't fly. When he saw Bailey Ningxu's serious injuries, he immediately stopped and asked with concern, "Aunt, how are your injuries? Are you all right?" Bailey Ningxu had already taken out a spirit pill and temporarily blocked the poison in her body with the help of the pill. She inherited most of the medical skills of Divine Dr. Bailey and was also a medical master. For a short time she could still resist the poison in her body and her life would not be in danger. Bailey Ningxu sat on the chair with a pale face, waved her hand and said in a weak voice, "Don't worry about me, I can still hold on. Take some men and chase after him immediately. You must capture Ji Tianxing." Yes. Zhu Fifan no longer hesitated and quickly cupped his fist to accept the order and left the room with a group of guards. Everyone rushed out of the Thousand Cloud Palace and saw Yun Luo's figure disappear in the night sky. Chase. Zhu Fifan waved his hand and gave the order, leading the 9 guards to chase with all their strength. Swish swish swish. Everyone's speed was extremely fast, like lightning cutting through the night sky, quickly passing through 2 palaces and a house. However, when everyone chased to a straight bluestone road, they completely lost track of Yun Luo and could no longer catch up. The 9 guards had to stop and frowned at Zhu Fifan, waiting for him to make a decision. Zhu Fifan panted and looked around sharply, looking for traces of Yun Luo. Damn Ji Tianxing, he escaped. However, his evil deeds have been exposed, he can't escape from Cloud Spirit Palace. Zhu Fifan could not understand why Ji Tianxing was so reckless and impulsive to assassinate Bailey Ningxu. Yun Luo, this was obviously a good thing for him. At the very least, after this incident, Ji Tianxing would be Cloud Soul Palace's enemy. It would be impossible for him to obtain Miracle Dr. Bailey's medical skills. Ji Tianxing, that idiot is as stupid as a pig. He is die, he is die. He's Yun suddenly. At this moment he suddenly saw 2 figures appear on the bluestone road in front of him. It was a young man in a white robe and an ice blue fox, who were rushing towards them. When Zhu Fifan saw the appearance of the white-robed young man, his face was suddenly full of astonishment, and his eyes were full of doubts. Ji Tianxing? He actually escaped back here? In the blink of an eye, Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu rushed to the front of the crowd and were about to pass by them. Zhu Fifan frowned and had some doubts in his mind. This guy is with a pet. It seems that he is going to the Thousand Cloud Palace? Shouldn't he be running for his life? What is he trying to do? Zhu Fifan vaguely felt that something was wrong. But he did not want to think too much. He waved his hand and ordered without hesitation, "Catch him. Don't let him escape." The 9 guards didn't think too much about it. They just obeyed orders and orders. They immediately drew their swords and sabers and surrounded Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu in a flash. Swish, swish, swish. 9 gleaming swords were pointed at Ji Tianxing's neck, chest, and other vital parts. Ji Tianxing was forced to stop in his tracks. He furrowed his brows in confusion. He looked at Zhu Fifan sharply and asked in a deep voice, "Zhu Fifan, what are you trying to do?" Zhu Fifan sneered and said contemptuously, "What am I trying to do? Ji Tianxing, don't play dumb with me. You have committed such a heinous crime. You deserve to die." A hint of astonishment flashed in Ji Tianxing's eyes as he subconsciously asked, "What heinous crime? Zhu Fifan, don't slander me." Qian Yu did not speak, but she was annoyed and murmured in her heart, "It's over. I knew something big was going to happen." Sure enough, Zhu Fifan looked at Ji Tianxing contemptuously and said coldly, "Ji Tianxing, you are about to die and you are still pretending? Just now you broke into the Qianyun Palace and tried to assassinate my aunt. You almost killed her. To think that our Cloud Spirit Palace has treated you so well. You are a beast with a human face. How dare you do such a cruel and vicious thing?" Upon hearing these words, Ji Tianxing's body trembled and his pupils constricted. "What? Someone tried to assassinate Madame Yun? It was definitely not me. Someone pretended to be me and tried to assassinate her." Although Ji Tianxing tried his best to explain, Zhu Fifan did not believe him. "Haha. Ji Tianxing, you really won't give up until you see the coffin. You can play dumb. I don't want to talk nonsense with you." After saying that, Zhu Fifan ordered the 9 guards, "What are you waiting for? Catch him." 2 of the guards immediately took out cold iron chains made of 1,000-years-old cold iron, wanting to tie Ji Tianxing up. Ji Tianxing waved his hands and slapped the 2 guards away. Zhu Fifan suddenly shouted angrily, "Ji Tianxing, how dare you hurt people? Since you are so stubborn, I will inform the punishment hall and ask them to take you to the ice prison." Ji Tianxing was stunned. He suddenly realized that it was not the time to quarrel and resist. If he continued to quarrel, it would only make things worse and more chaotic. So he suppressed the anger in his heart and calmed down. He said in a low voice, "Zhu Fifan, I want to see Madame Yun. I didn't do this. As long as I confront her, the truth will be revealed." Seeing that he stopped resisting, Zhu Fifan sneered, "Good. Since you still refuse to admit your guilt, I will take you to the Qianyun Palace to confront her. Let's see how you will quibble." After saying that, he ordered the guards to escort Ji Tianxing and rush towards the Thousand Cloud Palace as fast as the wind. After a quarter of an hour, everyone arrived at the Qianyun Palace. They quickly went upstairs and entered Bailey Ningxu's room. At this time, Bailey Ningxu's room was full of people. More than 30 elite guards were guarding outside the room. They were full of killing intent. Chapter 751. The atmosphere in the room was cold, solemn, and somewhat oppressive. Bailey Ningxu was sitting on a rattan chair, silently circulating her energy to dissolve the poison in her body. 2 Yun family elders were working together to help her resist the corrosion of the poison. Everyone's expression was full of anger, and their eyes were full of killing intent. "And I've already caught Ji Tianxing." Zhu Fifan shouted in a low voice and brought Ji Tianxing into the room. When Ji Tianxing stepped into the room, everyone turned their heads to look at him in unison. Their eyes were filled with intense hostility and killing intent. As soon as Ji Tianxing entered the room, he quickly saw the situation inside. Several walls collapsed, the windows were broken, and many of the furnishings were shattered. Bailey Ningxu was covered in blood and she looked a bit embarrassed. The scene was a mess, and there was no doubt that a fierce battle had just happened here. Ji Tianxing's mood was a bit gloomy and he secretly clenched his fists. But he kept calm and walked in front of Bailey Ningsu and cupped his hands in salute. Junior greets aunt. Bailey Ningsu temporarily stopped circulating her energy and slowly opened her eyes. She looked at Ji Tianxing indifferently and a trace of hatred flashed in her eyes. She said in a cold voice, "You don't have the qualifications to call me aunt. I really believed in you and that's why I was killed by you." Ji Tianxing shook his head and hurriedly explained, "Auntie, please believe me. I didn't do it. Before today I've been cultivating in Hefeng Garden, and I haven't even stepped out of the door. Just now, Qianyu saw someone pretending to be me and rushed to Thousand Cloud Palace and quickly reported the news to me. When I heard the news I hurriedly rushed over with Qianyu, but I didn't expect that I would still be a step too late." Bailey Ningsu looked at him coldly and didn't move at all. Twisting words and forcing logic. Zhu Fifan coldly snorted and contemptuously sneered, "Ji Tianxing, in order to shirk responsibility, you even made up such a lie, you're really shameless." Ji Tianxing looked at him sharply and said in a deep voice, "I'm not lying, this is what Qianyu saw with his own eyes, he can testify." Qianyu quickly nodded and said in a serious tone, "Yes, just half an hour ago, I saw a maid pretending to be old Ji." "Ha ha." Zhu Fifan suddenly laughed and looked at Ji and asked, "A maid pretending to be you? Which maid in Cloud Spirit Palace looks like a man?" "Ji Tianxing, can't you at least make up a better lie? Can you please think before you speak?" As he spoke he said Qianyu and Qianyu said, "You of course Qianyu Qianyu's. Qian Ian Qian and you Qian Ian. Ji Tianxing frowned and shouted, "Zhu Fifan. Both of you shut up." Bailey Ningsu saw the two of them bickering and finally spoke up. Ji Tianxing and Zhu Fifan immediately stopped quarreling and turned to look at her. Bailey Ningsu's cheeks and lips were as pale as paper, and her breath was a little chaotic and weak. She looked at Ji Tianxing indifferently and said in a low voice, "Ji Tianxing, even if I believe that you are innocent, someone might have pretended to be you and tried to assassinate me. However, no matter how good the disguise is, it can only imitate a person's appearance and voice, but it can't imitate your breath. Everyone's breath is different and they all have their own characteristics. I am no stranger to your breath, and the person who tried to assassinate me just now was clearly your breath. Ji Tianxing, how do you explain this?" This. Ji Tianxing was suddenly speechless and he frowned hard. Hundreds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and he racked his brain to think of an explanation. At the same time his eyes swept across the messy room, trying to find some clues to analyze the truth. Zhu Fifan saw that he was silent and sneered, "Ji Tianxing, you have nothing to say, right? You can't argue, right?" Ji Tianxing suddenly thought of something and suddenly a light flashed through his mind. He looked at Bailey Ningsu with burning eyes and said seriously, "Auntie, what you just said is wrong. Ordinary disguise is naturally unable to imitate another person's breath. However, you should know about the Murong family. Their inherited secret technique can not only imitate another person's appearance and voice, but also imitate a special breath." This time, without waiting for Zhu Fifan to refute, Bailey Ningsu shook her head and said coldly, "Ji Tianxing, of course I know about the Murong family's secret technique. However, this excuse of yours is too far-fetched. Could it be that someone from the Murong family sneaked into Cloud Soul Palace and pretended to be you to assassinate me? What do you think Cloud Soul Palace is? How could someone from the Murong family sneak in?" Ji Tianxing was once again speechless, unable to refute. Bailey Ningsu looked at him indifferently and continued, "You just said that you've been cultivating in Hefeng Garden for the past 2 days, and you haven't even stepped out of the door. Then let me ask you, other than your pet, who can testify for you?" Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment, then quickly said, "For the past few days, a maid named Xiaoyi has been serving me in Hefeng Garden. She can testify for me." In fact, Xiaoyi was Yun Yao's trusted maid, and she was purposely arranged to serve Ji Tianxing in Hefeng Garden. Bailey Ningsu looked at a guard commander and ordered, "Go to Hefeng Garden and bring the maid Xiaoyi here." "Understood." The guard commander cupped his fists and accepted the order, then quickly left the room and rushed to Hefeng Garden. The room fell into silence and everyone waited patiently. Soon a quarter of an hour passed. The guard commander came back with a delicate and pretty maid. It was Xiaoyi. Everyone's eyes suddenly gathered on her, revealing an expectant look. Xiaoyi's figure was slightly thin, and her personality was simple and introverted. She had never seen such a big scene, and after being brought into the room she timidly lowered her head, feeling very nervous. Servant Xiao Yi greets mistress. Xiao Yi trembled as she walked in front of Bailey Ningsu and respectfully bowed. Bailey Ningsu looked at her indifferently and asked in a dignified tone, Xiao Yi, I ask you, for the past 2 days has Ji Tianxing been cultivating in Hefeng Garden? Xiao Yi didn't dare to speak and only nodded, yes. Hearing her answer honestly, Ji Tianxing secretly let out a sigh of relief. Zhu Fifan frowned and his expression was somewhat gloomy. Bailey Ningsu continued to ask Xiao Yi, an hour ago was Ji Tianxing still cultivating in his room? Did he leave Hefeng Garden? This. Xiao Yi suddenly hesitated and didn't dare to speak. Speak. If you dare lie to me, I won't forgive you. Bailey Ningsu's voice was ice cold as she shouted. Chapter 752. Xiao Ye's reply caused everyone's expression to change. Bailey Ningsu expressionlessly looked at her and continued to ask, you were ordered to serve Ji Tianxing in Hefeng Garden, but you weren't there. Where did you go? Xiao Yi fearfully lowered her head, her voice carrying a sobbing tone. This servant followed eldest Mrs. orders and went to the kitchen to bring young Master Ji some spiritual porridge. For the past 2 days after nightfall, this servant would go to the kitchen and leave for an hour. When this servant brought the spiritual porridge back to Hefeng Garden, young Master Ji was no longer in his room. Hearing her reply, Ji Tianxing's expression immediately changed, his heart cursing. But he also knew that what Xiao Yi said was the truth. Bailey Ningsu glanced at Ji Tianxing, then continued to ask Xiao Yi, then do you know when Ji Tianxing left Hefeng Garden? Mistress, this servant also doesn't know. Xiao Yi didn't dare to hide anything and could only answer truthfully. Bailey Ningsu took a deep breath, suppressing the anger in her heart. Expressionlessly she said, you may withdraw. Yes. Xiao Yi replied. She hurriedly bowed and left the room. After Xiao Yi left, Bailey Ningsu looked at Ji Tianxing, her voice cold as ice. Ji Tianxing, Xiao Yi can't prove your innocence. What else do you have to say? Ji Tianxing's expression was somewhat unsightly, but he could only speak with sincerity. And I know you don't believe me, but this is indeed a coincidence. This incident happened so suddenly. Please give me some time. I will definitely find out the truth and prove my innocence. Bailey Ningsu shook her head expressionlessly, saying, no need to say anything more. As for the truth of the matter, I will be able to discern it. After saying that, she looked at the 2 elders beside her and ordered in a deep voice, elders, take Ji Tianxing away and lock him up in the ice prison. Guard him strictly. After I report this matter to the family head, we will convict him. And Ji Tianxing immediately revealed an anxious expression, still wanting to explain. However, Bailey Ningsu had already closed her eyes, clearly unwilling to listen to him. The 2 elders no longer hesitated, their faces cold as ice as they walked to Ji Tianxing's side. They stretched out their steel-like hands and grabbed his arms. The 2 of them grabbed his arms, one on the left and one on the right, and walked out of Bailey Ningsu's room. The 2 elders of the Yun clan were experts, both at the 7th or 8th level of Sky Origin stage. If Ji Tianxing struggled with all his might, there was a great chance that he would be able to break free and escape from the 2 elders. But if he really did that, there would be another conflict, and the conflict between him and Cloud Spirit Palace would become even more intense. It would only make this matter harder to explain clearly. Thus he could only keep his calm and let the 2 elders to hold him. Not long after, the 2 elders escorted him out of the Thousand Cloud Palace, heading towards the ice prison deep underground. Qianyu was not captured, but it was worried about Ji Tianxing's safety, so it followed Ji Tianxing all the way, unwilling to leave. After a while, Ji Tianxing was about to be taken to the underground ice prison. Seeing Qianyu still following him, he said to it with a serious face, Qianyu, you can't follow me to the ice prison. Go back now and look for Yao Yao immediately. Tell her about this matter clearly. Madame Yun won't believe me, only Yao Yao will. Maybe she can help me find out the truth. This is my only chance to clear my name and prove my innocence. Qianyu understood the urgency of the situation, so it quickly stopped and nodded. It said seriously, Old Ji, don't worry. I will go find Yun Yao now. Don't worry, we will find a way to save you and prove your innocence. After that, Qian Yu quickly turned around and left. Ji Tianxing was escorted by 2 elders. They passed through the dimly lit tunnel and walked towards the depths of the underground. Not long after, he was taken to the ice prison. The ice prison was a prison built by the Yun family in the mountains. It was protected by a powerful array and was guarded by many elite guards. The entire prison was made of ice. The temperature was so low that even the air was frozen. If an Origin Core stage martial artist was imprisoned here, they would have to endure the corrosion of the extremely cold air at all times, and would definitely experience a pain worse than death. Although Sky Origin stage cultivators could withstand the extreme cold, they would still find it unbearable. Both their minds and bodies would be tortured. After all, the ice prison was dark, cold, and silent. It made people feel sad and lonely. Ji Tianxing was locked in a prison cell with a radius of 5 meters. The entire prison cell was made of ice bricks and was sealed by an invisible array. There was nothing in the prison cell. The walls were white and there was no other color. After the door of the prison cell was closed and the 2 elders left, the prison cell fell into silence. Ji Tianxing stood alone in the prison cell. He thought about what had happened and tried to find some clues. He still couldn't figure out who wanted to frame him. Why did they do it? What was their goal? Inside the Thousand Cloud Palace, the lights were bright and the atmosphere was tense. Bailey Ningsu and the others left the room and entered the main hall. The guards and maids were standing guard outside the main hall. There were only a few people in the main hall. Bailey Ningsu sat on a jade lotus platform. Her face was pale and her eyes were closed. She was recuperating from her injuries. Her father, Divine Dr. Bailey, had heard the news and rushed over. He was using a soul secret technique to help her expel the poison and treat her injuries. Even the head of the family, Yun Zhongqi, was alarmed. He stood beside Bailey Ningsu and looked at her with concern. His face was full of worry. He already knew what had happened. His mood was very complicated and heavy. At this moment, a graceful figure in a long white dress stepped through the door like a gust of wind and entered the hall. It was Yun Yao. She had just learned that her mother had been assassinated and rushed over as fast as she could. Swoosh! Yun Yao rushed into the main hall. When she saw Bailey Ningsu covered in blood and in a miserable state, her face was full of worry. She saw that her grandfather was treating her mother. She didn't dare to disturb him. She looked at her father Yun Zhongqi and asked in a low voice, "Father, how are my mother's injuries? Is it serious?" Sigh. Yun Zhongqi sighed and said in a low voice, "Your mother's injuries are very serious. She was almost stabbed in the heart and died on the spot. Moreover, the assassin's dagger was dipped in poison. It has already entered her heart." Yun Zhongqi saw that Yun Yao's expression changed drastically. He was extremely worried. He quickly comforted her. "Yao Yao, don't worry. Your grandfather is here. Your mother will be fine." Only then did Yun Yao feel a little relieved. She asked in a gloomy tone, "Father, have you caught the assassin? Who is so vicious and savage that they dared to assassinate my mother in Cloud Spirit Palace?" Yun Zhongqi glanced at her and said with a strange expression, "The assassin is Ji Tianxing." Chapter 753. Yun Yao was originally filled with anger and worry when her mother was assassinated in the Thousand Cloud Palace. However, when she heard her father's words, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her body froze on the spot. She couldn't believe that the assassin was Ji Tianxing. If her father hadn't said those words, she would have thought that she had misheard. How is this possible? After regaining her senses, Yun Yao shook her head subconsciously and said firmly, "Father, I don't believe that Tianxing would do such a thing. How could he assassinate my mother? There must be a problem. There must be some misunderstanding." Yun Yao was agitated and her reaction was a little intense. She couldn't accept this answer at all. Yun Zhongqi had expected her reaction. He said with a serious face, "Yao Yao, I know that you don't believe that Ji Tianxing did it. In fact, I had the same thought as you when I first found out about this. However, how could your mother make up a lie? Your cousin and the guards all saw Ji Tianxing assassinate your mother with their own eyes. Your mother even gave Ji Tianxing a chance to prove his innocence. However, he couldn't produce any evidence to shirk his responsibility. The facts are all there. The evidence is irrefutable. Yao Yao, you can only accept this fact." Yun Yao's mood became more and more gloomy. Her thoughts were a little chaotic and tears welled up in her eyes. She still couldn't believe this result. She shook her head with all her might and said, "No. I still can't believe that Tianqing is not that kind of person." "Yao Yao." Yun Zhongqi shouted sternly and said coldly, "It has already happened. Your mother almost lost her life. Are you still going to be stubborn? You may know a person for a long time but you can't judge his heart. You think you know Ji Tianqing very well but who can really see through someone's heart?" Yun Yao couldn't refute. She could only shake her head and deny it. Tears flowed from her eyes. She couldn't imagine that in just a few hours without seeing Ji Tianqing, something like this would happen and cause such a big mess. On one side was her biological mother and on the other was the person she loved, but they suddenly became life and death enemies. She was sandwiched between the two of them and didn't know what to do. Yun Zhongqi also understood that she was the one with the most chaotic and sorrowful emotions right now, so he didn't say anything else. He sighed in his heart and said calmly, "All right, Yao Yao, let father handle this matter. Go back to your room and rest." Yun Yao quickly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and calmed down. She looked up at Yun Zhongqi and asked in a low voice, "Father, have you caught Tianqing? Where is he now?" Yun Zhongqi was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, "He's locked in the ice prison. You can go and see him." "Why don't you ask him yourself why he was so cruel and did such a vicious thing to your mother? However, Yao Yao, don't even think about secretly letting him go. Father has already sent some experts to guard the ice prison. Without father's orders he won't be able to leave the ice prison." Yun Zhongqi knew Yun Yao's personality very well. He guessed that she might take the opportunity to let Ji Tianqing go, so he reminded her. Yun Yao nodded silently. She bowed and bid farewell to Yun Zhongqi before she turned and left the main hall. She walked out of the Thousand Cloud Palace expressionlessly and rushed to the ice prison with a sorrowful expression. Although she had calmed down, her thoughts were still a little messy and her emotions were very complicated. Her subconscious told her that this was definitely not Ji Tianqing's doing. There must be something else behind it. However, she was also a little afraid. She was afraid that this was the truth and that Ji Tianqing was the assassin. After all, her mother had always been prejudiced against Ji Tianqing and was unwilling to accept him. What if Ji Tianqing held a grudge against her and tried to assassinate her out of anger? Yun Yao didn't dare to think about it anymore. Her heart was in a mess and she didn't know how to face it. Just as she passed by a palace and reached the corner of the Bluestone Road, she suddenly heard a call from the dark side of the road. "Yun Yao. Wait a minute." Yun Yao immediately stopped and turned to look at the source of the voice. She saw an ice-blue ice fox hiding in the dark. He naturally recognized it. It was Ji Tianqing's pet Qianyu. Qianyu looked at her with a hopeful face. It waved its little paws and shouted in a low voice, "Yun Yao, come here quickly. Old Ji asked me to pass you a message." Yun Yao quickly walked in front of Qianyu and asked expectantly, "Qianyu, what message did Tianqing ask you to pass me?" Qianyu looked around and saw that there was no one around. It lowered its voice and said, "Yun Yao, tonight's incident was a conspiracy. Someone deliberately framed Old Ji. I saw a maid pretending to be Old Ji and rushing to the Qianyun Palace with my own eyes." When Yun Yao heard this, the haze that shrouded her heart immediately dissipated, and the worries in her heart were immediately resolved. Sure enough, I knew that Tianqing was not that kind of person. She showed a look of surprise and asked quickly, "Qianyu, tell me quickly what's going on?" Qianyu quickly explained the matter in detail, and after he finished he said with a somewhat depressed tone, "Although this matter is inconceivable, but it is absolutely true. They don't want to believe me. Yun Yao, you should believe me, right? It's a pity that Old Ji was caught and put in the ice prison. I can't find the guy who pretended to be Old Ji. Otherwise the truth would definitely be revealed." Yun Yao understood the whole story and immediately calmed down. She quickly nodded and said, "Qianyu, of course I believe you. And I have always believed that Tianqing would not assassinate my mother." Qianyu heaved a sigh of relief and said in a serious tone, "Old Ji said that even if the world doesn't believe him, as long as you still believe him, he will be satisfied. He was willing to be caught and put in the ice prison because he didn't want things to get out of hand and completely fall out with the Cloud Spirit Palace. He is waiting for you in the ice prison. Only you can help him find out the truth and prove his innocence. Okay, let's go to the ice prison to visit him first. Then we will think of a way." After that, Yun Yao quickly brought Qian Yu to the ice prison. Soon Yun Yao and Qian Yu went through the underground tunnel and entered the ice prison's entrance. There was a giant ice door that was 100 meters tall at the entrance. It was tightly shut and there were 4 powerhouses of the ethereal origin stage standing guard on both sides of the door. Seeing this, Yun Yao knew that her father did not lie to her. If she wanted to let Ji Tianxing escape from the ice prison, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. She told the guards the purpose of her visit. The guards opened the door and allowed her and Qian Yu to enter. After a while, she entered the depths of the ice prison and saw Ji Tianxing outside the door of a cell. Ji Tianxing was sitting cross-legged in the cell. His eyes were closed and he was cultivating. His expression was calm and indifferent. Yun Yao was relieved to see that he was safe and sound. "I am here." Yun Yao looked at Ji Tianxing through the cell's window and said with concern. Chapter 754. Yao Yao, you're here. Ji Tianxing walked to the door and greeted Yun Yao through the window of the ice crystal cell door. Yao Yao, I didn't do this. Yun Yao was so close to him, but they were separated by the ice crystal cell door. She was in a very bitter mood. She stared at Ji Tianxing and interrupted him. Tianxing, don't say any more. I believe you. I always have. Ji Tianxing looked at her silently with a gentle smile on his face. Even though the prison was bone-chillingly cold, his heart was filled with warmth. The two of them were connected, so he could naturally feel that Yun Yao trusted him unconditionally. When her mother was assassinated and almost lost her life, Yun Yao still believed in him unconditionally. This was the most commendable thing about him. What more could a man ask for when he could have such a confidant in his life? The two of them stared at each other, their eyes burning with passion. Qian Yu was silent for a long time. Finally, she couldn't help but say, "Ahem. Old Ji, Yun Yao, can we talk about business first and find a way to solve this problem? After Old Ji has cleared his name and proved his innocence, you two can do whatever you want. It won't be a problem for you to do it for a night." Ji Tianxing glared at Qian Yu and Qian Yu quickly shut up. Yun Yao said seriously, "Tianxing, although I believe that you didn't do it, we can't provide any evidence. My parents also refused to believe you. Do you have any evidence or clues?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and said, "I don't have any evidence for the time being, but I just thought about it carefully. There are many suspicious points in this matter. As long as we analyze it calmly, it won't be difficult to find out the truth." Yun Yao immediately showed an expectant look and nodded, "Okay." Ji Tianxing frowned and thought. Then he said in a low voice, "Before tonight's incident, Qian Yu saw a maid pretending to be me and rushing to the Thousand Cloud Palace. This meant that the murderer was a young woman. The murderer was able to smoothly enter the Thousand Cloud Palace to commit murder without arousing anyone's suspicions. Not even your mother was alerted. This meant that the culprit was very familiar with the situation in Cloud Spirit Palace, especially the Thousand Cloud Palace. Moreover, your mother is a Sky Origin Stage cultivator. How could the murderer injure your mother and escape in front of so many people? It proves that the killer is at least at the 6th level of Sky Origin Stage." Yun Yao listened attentively to Ji Tianxing's analysis and suddenly felt enlightened. She quickly nodded in agreement. "That's right. Tianxing, you are right. The murderer is a young lady who is at the 6th level of Sky Origin Stage. She is quite familiar with the Cloud Soul Palace. If we investigate according to these requirements, we can greatly reduce the scope of suspicion, and we will soon find out the truth." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and continued in a serious tone. "In addition, the murderer can imitate my appearance, voice and aura. This is also very strange. Only the secret martial art of the Murong clan can imitate someone else's aura. So the murderer must be related to the Murong clan." He paused for a while and then continued, "The murderer pretended to be me and tried to frame me. She wanted me to become the enemy of the Cloud Soul Palace and completely break off our relationship. Who would hate me so much and want to destroy the relationship between the Cloud Soul Palace and me? Only the Duanmu clan and the Murong clan." Yun Yao nodded in agreement. She said, "That's right. Tianxing, with your analysis we are getting closer to the truth. The murderer who tried to assassinate my mother must have been ordered by the Murong clan or the Duanmu clan. But who could it be? There are many young ladies in the Cloud Soul Palace and many of them are at the Sky Origin Stage." Ji Tianxing kept silent and thought for a while. Suddenly he had an idea. Yao Yao, I suddenly thought of someone who fits all these requirements. He is very suspicious. Who? Yun Yao immediately raised her head and looked at him. Her eyes were full of expectation and doubt. Ji Tianqing said with a serious face, your mother's personal maid Yun Luo. Yun Luo? How could it be her? Yun Yao's face was full of shock. She couldn't believe it. Tianqing, although Yun Luo basically meets the requirements you've mentioned, she's my mother's trusted bodyguard. She has been in the Cloud Soul Palace for more than 10 years. She has always been loyal to the Yun clan. She even blocked a sword for my mother and almost lost her life. How could she be ordered by the Murong clan and the Duanmu clan to pretend to be you and assassinate my mother? Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a while. Then he calmly said, Yao Yao, I know you can't believe it. But this is only my speculation. If we want to find the truth, we must make bold guesses and investigate carefully. We can't miss any suspicious person. The reason why I suspect Yun Luo is because she is very suspicious. Yun Luo is your mother's personal guard. But when the murderer tried to assassinate your mother, why wasn't she there to protect her? When I rushed to your mother's room, she wasn't there. Where did she go during this time? Hearing this, Yun Yao fell silent. She frowned and thought for a while. Then she replied, I just went to the Thousand Cloud Palace and asked my father. He told me everything. Before the incident happened, Yun Luo was in the room with my mother. My mother suddenly remembered something and wanted to talk to you in private. So she sent Yun Luo to Hefeng Garden to find you. Who knew that not long after Yun Luo left, the murderer would pretend to be you and enter my mother's room to assassinate her. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing suddenly frowned and a glint flashed in his eyes. Yao Yao, you just said, your mother sent Yun Luo to Hefeng Garden to inform me? But Yun Luo never came to Hefeng Garden. It was Qian Yu who came back to inform me. Then I went to Thousand Cloud Palace with her. Before we even arrived at Thousand Cloud Palace, the incident had already happened. At this point, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a cold light. He said coldly, It seems that Yun Luo is too suspicious. The murderer is most likely her. Yun Yao instinctively didn't want to believe that Yun Luo was the murderer. After all, Yun Luo had served Bailey Ningxu in Cloud Spirit Palace for more than 10 years. She had always been loyal and devoted. She didn't look like a spy from the Duanmu or Murong family. However, Ji Tianqing's analysis of all the clues pointed to Yun Luo. She had no choice but to accept reality. With a serious expression she muttered, could the murderer really be her? Why would she do that? When did she become a spy for the Murong and Duanmu families? Yao Yao, now is not the time to think about this. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a gloomy expression, the most important thing now is to investigate Yun Luo's crimes as soon as possible and let the truth come to light. Perhaps we can think of a way to make Yun Luo reveal her true identity and purpose. Yun Yao understood what he meant and immediately nodded in agreement. Chapter 755. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and pondered for a moment. Suddenly he thought of an idea and his eyes flashed with a bright light. Yao Yao, I have an idea. Yun Yao was deep in thought when she was awakened by his voice. She immediately raised her head and looked at him with an expectant gaze. Tianqing, what idea have you come up with? Ji Tianqing revealed a confident smile. Yao Yao, I have a way to find the real culprit and make her reveal her true identity. However, I'll need your father's help. Yao Yao, hurry and find your father. I want to discuss this with him face to face. Right, I'll go now. Yun Yao hurriedly nodded in agreement and turned to leave the ice prison. Inside the Thousand Cloud Palace. Inside a heavily guarded secret room, two people were conversing in low voices. These two people were Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningxu. Bailey Ningxu's injuries after being treated by Divine Dr. Bailey were no longer a problem. The poison in her body had been neutralized, but her body was still weak. She would be fully recovered after 2 or 3 months of recuperation. She sat on a jade throne with a pale face as she silently pondered. Yun Zhongqi stood beside her with his hands behind his back. He stared at the wall with a burning gaze. After a moment of silence, Yun Zhongqi suddenly asked, Madam, do you really think that the culprit is Ji Tianqing? Bailey Ningxu shook her head. It shouldn't be him. It's most likely that someone impersonated him and tried to assassinate me. Although the assassin said that he tried to assassinate me because I stopped him from being with Yao Yao, that's a bit far-fetched. It's not enough for him to try and kill me, especially at a time like this. Also, I don't think Ji Tianqing is the type of person who's two-faced and vicious. Yun Zhongqi nodded and said with a solemn expression, "That's right, I think so too. Ji Tianqing wouldn't do something like this, especially in such a clumsy manner. The culprit did this to destroy our relationship with Ji Tianqing and turn him against Cloud Soul Palace. I'm afraid that only the Duanmu family and the Murong family would be so eager to deal with us." Bailey Ningsu frowned, her face filled with worry as she continued. "The reason why I locked him in the ice prison was to find out the truth and find out who the real culprit is. There is actually a spy in our Yun family, and it is very likely that there is more than one. I want to take this opportunity to find the spy and clean up Cloud Spirit Palace. If we don't find out who the spy is, there will be even more trouble in the future." Yun Zhongqi nodded in agreement and asked in a deep voice, "It seems like Madam already has a countermeasure?" Bailey Ningsu said calmly, "I've already sent people from the Hidden Cloud Pavilion to seal off Cloud Soul Palace and investigate all suspicious people. Also, I was waiting for Ji Tianqing's reaction. I wanted to see if he could come up with a solution." Although he was a world-renowned martial arts genius, he was still too young and still had a long way to go. If you want to become a true peerless expert, talent alone isn't enough. You also need to have enough wisdom and methods. Yun Zhongqi silently listened and didn't interrupt, but he agreed with her thoughts. Bailey Ningsu paused for a moment before continuing. Ji Tianqing and the Duanmu family are already irreconcilable. It is inevitable that the Duanmu family will seek revenge and plot against him. This matter is just the beginning. The Duanmu family will definitely come up with even more schemes and plots. If Ji Tianqing can't solve these problems and plots, how can he fight against the Duanmu family? If he can't even protect himself, how can he protect Yao Yao? How can I be at ease in entrusting Yao Yao to him?" Yun Zhongqi nodded and said in a heavy voice, "Of course I understand the pitiful hearts of parents. Madam, you've always been thinking for Yao Yao. Otherwise you wouldn't have made things difficult for Ji Tianqing. From Ji Tianqing's previous actions, I believe that he will quickly find a way to resolve this crisis." Bailey Ningsu didn't reply and only nodded silently. At that moment, a guard's voice came from outside the secret room. "Reporting to family head, eldest miss requests an audience." Yun Zhongqi raised his brows and said in a dignified voice, "Let eldest miss in." With that said, he waved his hand and released a ray of light, opening the secret room's stone door. Yun Yao immediately walked into the secret room and bowed to Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu. "Father, I just went to the ice prison to see Tianqing. Father, mother, you must believe in Tianqing. He's been wrongly accused. Someone is deliberately trying to frame him." Yun Zhongqi nodded slightly and said with a calm expression, "Yao Yao, apart from this, what else did Ji Tianqing say?" Yun Yao hurriedly said, "Father, Tianqing wants to see you. He wants to discuss something with you. He has a way to find the real culprit and reveal the truth." Hearing her words, Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu looked at each other, revealing a look of understanding. Yun Zhongqi stroked his beard and nodded. "All right, I'll go to the ice prison to see him now." With that said, he calmly left the secret room and rushed to the underground ice prison. Half an hour later, he entered the depths of the underground prison and met with Ji Tianqing in the ice prison. One of them stood in the prison cell while the other stood at the door. They looked at each other through the ice crystal door. Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and bowed to Yun Zhongqi. He said with concern, "Greetings, Uncle Yun. How are Auntie's injuries?" Yun Zhongqi nodded slightly and said with his spiritual sense, "Your auntie's injuries are no longer serious. You don't need to worry. Let's talk business. Do you have a way to find the real culprit?" In order to keep it a secret, Ji Tianqing also said with his spiritual sense. He said with a serious tone, "The culprit pretended to be me and tried to frame me. He wanted to sever ties with Cloud Soul Palace and turn us against each other. Not long ago the Duanmu Huang tried to kill me outside Zhongzhou City. I sent a message to Uncle and you personally came to save me. The Duanmu Huang recognized you and knew about our relationship. Therefore the culprit was most likely ordered by the Duanmu Huang. The Duanmu family is the most suspicious. However, the culprit not only pretended to be me but also imitated my aura. This means that the Murong family is also involved. If the Duanmu family and the Murong family work together to deal with us, their goal is not only to deal with me but also the Yun family. The fact that the culprit tried to assassinate Auntie means that their goal is the Yun family as well. Yun Zhongqi silently listened to him and nodded his head in agreement. Tianxing, since you've analyzed all these clues, do you have a way to deal with this? Tianxing nodded with a serious expression. He said with a playful tone, my way is to beat them at their own game and lure them out. Beat them at their own game? Yun Zhongqi raised his eyebrows and revealed a look of interest. Chapter 756. The Thousand Cloud Palace was brightly lit and filled with people. Bailey Ningsu was sitting in the main hall on the first floor, resting on a large chair with her eyes closed. Yun Luo, who was dressed as a maid, stood behind her with an expressionless face and a respectful posture. Yun Luo had regained her usual cold and stern temperament, without any abnormalities. In addition, there were 6 guards and a few maids standing respectfully to the side. The main hall was quiet, with only the occasional clanking sound from the second floor breaking the silence of the night. The Yun family's craftsmen were repairing the walls and windows, redecorating Bailey Ningsu's room. At this moment in the night sky not far away, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly rang out. Following that, a series of loud and muffled bangs could be heard. Along with the loud bangs, there was a dazzling 5-colored light that rushed into the sky, illuminating the dark night. There was also a violent true essence fluctuation coming from the depths of the earth. Such a huge commotion immediately alarmed the entire Cloud Spirit Palace, causing countless people to wake up in shock. Bailey Ningsu and the others in the Thousand Cloud Palace were also awakened, their faces full of confusion. Bailey Ningsu opened her eyes and frowned. She looked at the night sky in the east and asked in a deep voice, "What's that sound? What's going on?" Many of the maids and guards in the hall were bewildered. They did not understand what was going on. Only Yun Luo frowned and thought for a moment. She guessed something and quickly replied, "Reporting to Madam, this commotion seems to be coming from the underground ice prison. There should be experts fighting." Just as she finished speaking, in the night sky not far away, there was another series of loud rumbles. Several houses were shattered by the violent shockwaves, turning into ruins and sending dust into the air. Chaotic and panicked screams immediately rang out, and the shouts and battle cries of many guards spread through the night sky. Hearing the ruckus, Bailey Ningsu's face turned serious and she ordered the guards, "What are you still standing around for? Quickly go and see what's going on." "Sir." The guards cupped their hands in salute and immediately turned to leave. A strange look flashed across Yun Luo's eyes. She hurriedly took a step forward and took the initiative to request, "Madam, let this servant go. If there really is an unforeseen event, this servant can also help." Bailey Ningsu nodded in agreement without hesitation. "It's good too. Go on then." Yun Luo quickly ran out of the lobby and rushed towards the underground ice prison as fast as lightning. Chua! She rushed out of Thousand Cloud Palace, turned into a stream of light and flew into the night sky, flying towards the east. At this moment she could clearly see that the loud noise and dazzling 5-colored spiritual light were indeed coming from the underground ice prison. Quite a few buildings near the ice prison had already collapsed. Hundreds of Yun family disciples and servants were fleeing in panic. There were also more than a dozen guards holding swords and sabers that flashed with cold light. They were shouting and shouting as they scattered in all directions, searching for something in Cloud Spirit Palace. The entire Cloud Spirit Palace was in a state of panic. Everyone was in a state of panic. Shouts of killing could be heard everywhere. Seeing this scene, Yun Luo's heart was filled with anticipation. She quickly rushed to the entrance of the ice prison. She saw that the ground at the entrance of the ice prison had been shattered, leaving behind many deep holes. Yun Luo quickly passed through the underground passage and quickly entered the ice prison. The ice crystal door of the ice prison had already been opened. There was a huge crack on the door. The ground and the surrounding walls were filled with traces of fighting. There were also many dark red bloodstains. There were even several bloody corpses lying on the ground. They were all guards who guarded the ice prison. When Yun Luo rushed to the depths of the ice prison, she saw several guard commanders and a Yun family elder surrounding a thin and dignified middle-aged man. That was the patriarch Yun Zhongqi. He leaned against the corner of the wall with a pale face. His hands were clutching his chest. The clothes on his chest were dyed red with blood. There was a hideous wound that was constantly bleeding. His injuries were very serious. His aura was chaotic and manic. He was roaring in anger. Damn it! This bastard is actually so vicious. Seeing this, Yun Luo's eyes flashed with doubt. She quickly went over. The elders of the Yun family and the commanders of the guards all looked at Yun Zhongqi with concern and asked about his injuries. Patriarch, how did you get injured? Who did this? Patriarch, we will send you back to treat your injuries. You must hold on. Nothing must happen to you. Yun Luo was very confused. Yun Zhongqi was a powerful soul-tempering stage cultivator. Who could injure him so severely? At this time, Yun Zhongqi stood up with the help of 2 guard commanders. His face was pale as he ordered, Second Elder, pass down my order immediately. Seal Cloud Spirit Palace and close the door. No matter what, we must find that bastard. We must not let him escape from Cloud Spirit Palace. The Second Elder hurriedly nodded and accepted the order. Then he turned around and left with an ice-cold complexion. He quickly issued the order. Soon after, a few guards escorted Yun Zhongqi out of the ice prison. The situation was urgent, so no one cared about Yun Luo. After all, she was only a servant. Her status was not high. Yun Luo looked around and saw that the ice prison was in a mess. A fierce battle had indeed occurred here, so he turned around and left. She quickly found a guard commander and asked, "What's going on? Why is the patriarch injured?" The guard commander shouted angrily, "It's that bastard Ji Tianxing. The patriarch just gave the order to execute him. He attacked the patriarch when he was unprepared and severely injured the patriarch. We tried to kill him, but he killed quite a few of our guards, allowing him to escape from the ice prison. However, he was also injured by the patriarch. Even if he escaped from the ice prison, he can't escape from Cloud Spirit Palace. He must be hiding." After the guard commander finished speaking, he hurriedly left the ice prison and led a team of guards to search Cloud Spirit Palace. Ji Tianxing can't defend himself. Not only did he commit the crime of assassinating the madam, he also injured the patriarch and escaped. This time he is completely finished. He will never be able to clear his name. Yun Luo sneered in her heart and quickly left the ice prison. After a while, she returned to the main hall of Thousand Cloud Palace and reported the matter to Bailey Ningsu. After hearing the report, Bailey Ningsu was so angry that her face turned pale. Her eyes were filled with a cold light. "Bastard! Ji Tianxing, this bastard, he is crazy. Cloud Spirit Palace and he cannot exist together. We must cut him into pieces." Bailey Ningsu angrily cursed and quickly asked Yun Luo, "How is the patriarch's injury? Is his life in danger?" Chapter 757. For the rest of the night, Cloud Spirit Palace was in chaos. Almost all the guards in the palace were out, looking for Ji Tianxing's whereabouts. The gates of Cloud Spirit Palace were closed, and all the exits were guarded by strong cultivators. With such tight security, not even a fly could fly out of Cloud Spirit Palace. It was almost impossible for Ji Tianxing to escape from Cloud Spirit Palace. Everyone in Cloud Spirit Palace was in a state of panic. Countless disciples and servants of the Yun family knew that Ji Tianxing had tried to assassinate the mistress and injured the patriarch. In just one night, Ji Tianxing went from being the crown prince of the Yun family and the future son-in-law of the Yun family to being Cloud Spirit Palace's mortal enemy. Not only was the Yun family dumbfounded by such a shocking turn of events, even the guests who had arrived at Cloud Spirit Palace ahead of time were shocked beyond words. Yun Luo had been secretly observing the situation, paying attention to the situation in Cloud Spirit Palace and the movements of the guards. At first she had some doubts. She could not believe that Ji Tianxing had really injured Yun Zhongqi and completely cut ties with the Yun family. However, after half a night of observation, she was completely sure of this matter and no longer had any doubts. Therefore, she used a secret communication technique that she had not used for many years and sent the news out of Cloud Spirit Palace. At dawn, the sky was just starting to turn white. In Autumn Wind City, thousands of miles away from Cloud Spirit Palace, a house in the south of the city was still sleeping peacefully in the morning fog. In a secret room in the depths of the house, Duanmu Huang was sitting on a large chair with his eyes closed, quietly waiting for something. At this moment Xingjian, the head of the soul husbandry sect, pushed open the stone door of the secret room and quickly walked in. Patriarch Luo sent a message. Xingjian bowed respectfully and held a palm-sized jade spiritual slip in front of Duanmu Huang. This jade spiritual slip was a special Dharma artifact used to transmit important messages. It could be sent thousands of miles away in half an hour. This item was called a communication jade slip. It was priceless and very precious. In the central continent, only the imperial courts and the top aristocratic families had the qualifications and financial resources to use communication jade slips to transmit messages. Duanmu Huang, who was resting with his eyes closed, immediately opened his eyes when he heard Xingjian's words. His eyes were filled with anticipation. "You've come just in time. I've been waiting for a long time." Duanmu Huang smiled and quickly reached out to receive the communication jade slip. He used his spiritual energy to cast a secret technique and read the message in the jade slip. A moment later he finished reading Yun Luo's message and immediately revealed an excited expression. Ji Tianxing's crime has been confirmed, and he won't be able to clear his name even if he jumps into the East Sea. Cloud Spirit Palace had fallen into chaos, and Yun Zhongqi had been severely injured. This was great. That's great. My plan has finally succeeded. Ah! Duanmu Huang laughed excitedly. His tone was full of pride. Xingjian also revealed a trace of a smile and hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed. "Congratulations, Patriarch, congratulations, Patriarch. May I ask what we should do next, Patriarch?" Duanmu Huang's emotions calmed down. He held the communication jade slip in his hand and said in a cold voice, What else can we do? Of course we'll take advantage of his weakness and kill him. We'll completely destroy the Yun family. I've already placed a spy in Cloud Spirit Palace and prepared everything. I'll now send a message to Luo and have her meet with the spy. The spy will then give her the soul reaping bell." "Soul reaping bell?" Xingjian's pupils constricted and a shocked expression appeared on his face. "Patriarch, are you talking about the precious treasure of the Yin Hun clan that we took 12 years ago when we destroyed them?" Duanmu Huang nodded with a cold smile on his face. "That's right. The soul reaping bell is a magic treasure that specializes in restraining spiritual energy. It's very powerful and very insidious. With Luo's status she should be able to smoothly approach Yun Zhongqi." Yun Zhongqi was severely injured and his strength had greatly decreased. He was at his weakest. As long as Luo catches him off guard she can use the power of the soul reaping bell to kill Yun Zhongqi on the spot. Even if she can't kill Yun Zhongqi she can still severely injure Yun Zhongqi's spiritual energy and cause his strength to greatly decrease. Once the spiritual energy is severely injured, it will take hundreds of years for it to recover. At that time won't Yun Zhongqi be at my mercy? Ah! After hearing Duanmu Huang's words, Xingjian revealed a look of anticipation and smirked. Inside Cloud Spirit Palace. In the southeast corner there was a beautiful garden. The trees in the garden were lush and the fragrance was pleasant. It was early in the morning and the garden was silent. No one was walking around. Cloud Spirit Palace had been in chaos last night, and the atmosphere was still oppressive and somber. Who would be in the mood to enjoy the scenery in the garden? However, on a small path in the depths of the garden, there was a middle-aged servant in gray linen clothes sweeping the fallen leaves with a broom. The middle-aged servant bent over and swept the floor. His movements were calm and steady, neither fast nor slow. His seemingly ordinary, turbid eyes would occasionally flash with a wisp of light. At this moment, a tall and thin servant girl appeared on the small path. She carried a box of food in her hand and walked calmly through the small path. She was about to pass through the garden and rush to the kitchen. This person was Yun Luo. She expressionlessly walked towards the middle-aged servant. She didn't look at the servant nor did she talk to him. However, when she passed by the middle-aged servant, the servant seemed to casually wave the broom, but his wide sleeve swept across her sleeve. Silently, 2 items fell into Yun Luo's hands. A communication jade slip made of white jade and a black bell the size of a wine cup. This simple black bell exuded a mysterious and cold aura. It was the magic treasure soul reaping bell. Yun Luo flipped her hand and put away the 2 items. She continued to walk forward. During the entire process, the two didn't say a word. They didn't even make eye contact. No one would have thought that these two seemingly unrelated people had some kind of connection. Half an hour later, Yun Luo carried the box of food to the entrance of Cloud Spirit Palace. Cloud Spirit Palace was the most sacred and dignified palace in Cloud Spirit Palace. It was also the palace of the patriarch Yun Zhongqi. There were more than 10 guards guarding the entrance. Among them there were 2 Sky Origin Stage Guard commanders. One of the commanders stopped Yun Luo and expressionlessly asked her why she had come. Yun Luo calmly bowed and explained, "Mistress ordered me to go to the kitchen and bring breakfast and elixirs to the patriarch." The guard commander did his job and carefully checked the box of food. After confirming that there was no problem, he let her go. Yun Luo carried the box of food into Cloud Spirit Palace. She calmly went up to the second floor and walked towards Yun Zhongqi's room. When she walked out of the room and saw that there was no one around, she took out a mask and put it on her face. In the blink of an eye, she changed her face into Ji Tianxing's. Her figure also changed slightly. Her appearance was exactly the same as Ji Tianxing's. She pushed open the door and quietly entered the room. She saw that Yun Zhongqi was sitting on the bed with his eyes closed. He was concentrating on healing his injuries. It seemed that he didn't notice her arrival. Seeing this, a cold killing intent flashed in Yun Luo's eyes. "Yun Zhongqi, your time of death has come." Chapter 758. Yun Luo was only 20 steps away from Yun Zhongqi. She arrived in front of Yun Zhongqi in an instant and channeled a vast amount of true yuan into the soul-reaping bell. The mysterious and cold black bell instantly expanded a few hundred times and became a black ancient bell that was 3 meters tall. The ancient bell lit up with the gray light of death and released a formless soul-suppressing energy that came crashing down on Yun Zhongqi's head. Yun Zhongqi was a powerful cultivator in the soul-refining stage and Yun Luo was only in the Sky Origin stage, so she could only unleash 50% of the soul-reaping bell's power. However, Yun Zhongqi was severely injured and his strength had decreased greatly. He was focused on healing himself and was completely unprepared. Yun Luo was confident that she could severely injure Yun Zhongqi with one strike and kill him with the soul-reaping bell. Yun Luo watched as the soul-reaping bell came crashing down on Yun Zhongqi from the sky and was about to envelop him. At this critical moment, Yun Zhongqi, who was circulating his energy to heal himself, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were clear and bright and they shone with a sharp and cold light. His body exuded a domineering aura. At this moment he was a powerful cultivator in the soul-refining stage. He didn't look weak at all because of his injuries at all. "Bastard, I've been waiting for you for a long time." Yun Zhongqi roared furiously like muffled thunder. He suddenly raised his palms and unleashed a dazzling white divine soul light. The white light condensed into a palm that was as large as a millstone. It carried a terrifying power as it slammed into the soul-reaping bell. Bang! With a loud bang, the soul-reaping bell was sent flying. It smashed through the roof and flew into the sky above the palace. Yun Luo was caught off guard and was pushed back by the terrifying power. Before she could react, Yun Zhongqi waved his palm again and slammed it down on her. Bang! This palm hit her abdomen and sent her flying. She slammed into the wall with a dull thud. An incomparably violent true essence power surged into her body, instantly shattering her Yuan Dan and destroying several of her meridians. Yun Luo's core and meridians were destroyed, and her cultivation was crippled by Yun Zhongqi. She rolled on the ground and coughed violently as blood poured out of her nose and mouth. However, she didn't seem to feel any pain. She struggled to get up and stared at Yun Zhongqi with wide eyes. "You're not injured? You were faking it." Yun Zhongqi stood up and stared at her with a sharp gaze. He said in a dignified voice, "That's right. If I didn't do that, how would I have lured you out?" Tianxing was right. "Not only do you want to deal with him, but you also want to assassinate me." Hearing Yun Zhongqi's words, Yun Luo's expression changed drastically. His heart was filled with shock and despair. She finally understood. Of Yun Luo. Of Yun Luo. It was all Yun Zhongqi and Ji Tianxing's scheme. Yun Luo stared at Yun Zhongqi in disbelief and roared in a low voice, "You put on a show with Ji Tianxing to lure me out? You sacrificed the lives of a few ice prison guards and destroyed half of the ice prison and a few houses just to make me believe you? Yun Zhongqi, you're really vicious and cruel. In fact, Yun Luo believed Yun Zhongqi because half of the ice prison and a few houses were destroyed and many guards were killed. She didn't think that it was all a trap. Before Yun Zhongqi could say anything, a secret door suddenly opened on the wall of the room. A handsome figure walked out from the secret room behind the secret door and said with a cold smile, what's the big deal about destroying half of the ice prison and a few houses? It's just a few buildings. The craftsmen of Cloud's Spirit Palace can quickly rebuild them. As for the ice prison guards who were sacrificed, they were just faking their deaths. They can easily fool you. This was the voice of a young man. His tone was full of ridicule and contempt. Yun Luo subconsciously raised her head to look. When she saw the appearance of the white-robed young man, her body shook and her eyes were filled with hatred. You're despicable. There was no doubt that the white-robed young man who walked out of the secret room was Ji Tianxing. Yun Luo stared at him coldly and said with gritted teeth, "No wonder the guards of Cloud's Spirit Palace couldn't find you even after searching for half a night. You've been hiding in Yun Zhongqi's room all this time. Everything that happened last night was just a ruse." "That's right," Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a cold smile. "Unfortunately, you realized it too late. With your intelligence, you still want to frame me? You're too naive." Yun Luo was so ashamed and angry that she vomited blood. At this point, she understood everything. Her plan was a complete failure and her cultivation was crippled. She was completely useless. In front of Yun Zhongqi and Ji Tianxing, she didn't have the qualifications to resist. Even escaping was a fantasy. She struggled to stand up and stared at Ji Tianxing with hatred. She cursed, "Ji Tianxing, don't be so proud. Even if you can avoid this disaster, you'll still die sooner or later. Moreover, you'll die without a burial place. You'll end up 10 times worse than me." Ji Tianxing didn't get angry. He looked at her with pity and said calmly, "You won't see when I die, but you'll die soon." Yun Zhongqi stared at Yun Luo with a sharp gaze. He waved his hand and shot out a 5-colored spirit light. It condensed into a spirit light hand and grabbed Yun Luo. He looked at Yun Luo from close range and said coldly, "What a brilliant disguise technique. Even your aura is the same as Tianxing's. You really can pass off the fake as the real one. I want to see who you are. You've hidden so deeply." As soon as he finished speaking, he reached out and pinched Yun Luo's cheek and pulled off an exquisite human skin mask. Along with a light ripping sound, Yun Luo's mask was torn off, revealing his true appearance. "Yun Luo? It's really you." Yun Zhongqi frowned and a trace of shock flashed through his eyes. Previously, when Ji Tianxing told him that the murderer was most likely Yun Luo, he didn't dare to believe it. Now he finally believed it. Yun Zhongqi was filled with anger. He grabbed Yun Luo's neck and said in a deep voice, "Yun Luo, you've been in Cloud Spirit Palace for more than 10 years and have been loyal to the Yun family. In order to protect the mistress, you blocked a sword for her and almost lost your life. Because of your loyalty, I gave you the surname Yun and let you serve the mistress. The mistress also sees you as her confidant. When were you bribed and became a spy? Speak." Yun Luo knew that he was going to die, so he gave up struggling. He revealed a sinister sneer and said in a hoarse voice, "More than 10 years ago, from the first day I entered the Yun family, I was ordered by the mistress to infiltrate." Chapter 759. What a good trick. After Yun Zhongqi heard Yun Luo's explanation, he sneered angrily. He immediately understood that the other party had been plotting for more than 10 years. Yun Luo was the spy that the other party had planted in Cloud Spirit Palace. She was the most important chess piece. Over the years, Yun Zhongqi had screened and purged the people in Cloud Spirit Palace several times. He had already eliminated dozens of spies. However, he had missed Yun Luo. He did not expect that Yun Luo was the spy who had hidden herself the most deeply. He stared at Yun Luo sharply and asked in a deep voice, "Tell me, who is your master? The Duanmu family or the Murong family?" Yun Luo did not answer. Black blood kept flowing out of her nose and mouth, and her eyes slowly closed. It turned out that she knew that she was going to die. In order to not reveal the secret, she took the opportunity when Yun Zhongqi was not on guard and secretly took the poison hidden in her teeth. In the blink of an eye, she was corroded by the poison and died on the spot. Yun Zhongqi immediately frowned and said with a face full of anger, "Damn it. She actually took poison and killed herself." Ji Tianxing glanced at Yun Luo's body and said with a serious face, "This person is indeed the other party's death warrior. She would rather kill herself than reveal any information. However, uncle, don't worry. Yun Luo has other accomplices. If there are no accidents, Dr. Bailey has already caught that guy. Even if that guy wanted to kill himself, it would be impossible. If he fell into the hands of Dr. Bailey, it would be difficult for him to die even if he wanted to." Yun Zhongqi nodded and his expression softened. He remembered that when Yun Luo attacked him, she had used the black ancient bell. He released his spiritual sense and searched around the palace. After a while, he found the soul-reaping bell on the roof. Without the support of true core, it had turned back into a black bell. With a thought, Yun Zhongqi used his invisible divine soul power to wrap around the black bell and fly into the room. Swoosh! He reached out and grabbed the black bell. He held it in his palm and carefully observed it. He quickly discovered the secret of the soul-reaping bell and his expression changed. What a sinister magic treasure. It's actually specialized in restraining the spiritual power. Fortunately, I was prepared. If this magic treasure had succeeded in its sneak attack, my spiritual power would have been severely injured and my strength would have dropped greatly. Ji Tianxing frowned as a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, "Humph. The other party is really willing to go all out. Their methods are truly vicious." At this moment, a guard captain came to the door and reported respectfully, "Reporting to Patriarch, Divine Dr. Bailey and Mistress have arrived at the Great Assembly Hall and are waiting for you." Yun Zhongqi put away the soul-reaping bell and ordered in a dignified voice, "Pass down my orders. Gather all the elders and managers in the meeting hall for a discussion. I have important news to announce." "Understood." The guard captain bowed and saluted. Then he quickly turned around and left to pass down the order. Yun Zhongqi then looked at Ji Tianxing with a kind smile on his face. "After a whole day of trouble and causing such a huge commotion, I can finally reveal the truth and clear your name." Ji Tianxing also revealed a relieved smile and nodded. Fortunately, it was resolved smoothly today. It won't affect tomorrow's birthday. After saying that, the two of them walked out of the room and went downstairs to the Great Assembly Hall. However, the scene of Yun Zhongqi carrying Yun Luo's corpse was a bit strange and horrifying. More than 10 people had already gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. Bailey Ningxu, Yun Yao and Divine Dr. Bailey had all arrived. There were also a few elders and managers of the Yun family as well as 2 guard captains. In addition, there was a middle-aged servant wearing gray linen clothes kneeling in the Great Assembly Hall. This person's entire body was covered in blood. His body was motionless as he knelt on the ground like a statue. He was Yun Luo's accomplice, the guy who was sweeping the garden. When he passed the jade slip and the soul-reaping bell to Yun Luo, he thought it was flawless. However, he didn't think that Divine Dr. Bailey would be hiding in the dark and see everything. After he separated from Yun Luo, Divine Dr. Bailey suddenly appeared and grabbed him. Although he struggled with all his might to escape, he couldn't escape from Divine Dr. Bailey's grasp. Even if he took poison to commit suicide, it was useless. Divine Dr. Bailey instantly used his power to force out the poison and saved him. Furthermore, Divine Dr. Bailey had crippled his cultivation and sealed his acupoints. He could only kneel on the ground like a stone statue. He couldn't even bite his tongue to commit suicide. All the elders, managers and captains looked at the middle-aged servant with a puzzled expression. They didn't understand what was going on. Only Divine Dr. Bailey, Bailey Ningxu and Yun Yao knew the real reason and process of this matter. At this time, Yun Zhongqi carried Yun Luo's corpse and brought Ji Tianxing into the Great Assembly Hall. When everyone saw Ji Tianxing appear, they were shocked and puzzled. Ji Tianxing? Didn't he hide? He actually dares to appear? Quickly catch him. No. Why is he with the Patriarch? Didn't Ji Tianxing assassinate the matriarch and injure the Patriarch? Why is the Patriarch safe and sound? What is going on? I'm confused. Although the elders, managers and captains didn't understand what was going on, they all knew. However, everyone realized that there must be more to this matter than meets the eye. Everyone was puzzled and looked at Yun Zhongqi expectantly. They were waiting for him to reveal the truth. Yun Zhongqi walked into the great assembly hall and threw Yun Luo's corpse beside the middle-aged servant. When Bailey Ningxu saw that Yun Luo was dead and his face was covered in blood, she sighed with mixed feelings. It's really her. Just a moment ago Yun Yao rushed to the Thousand Cloud Palace and told her everything. She told her that the murderer was Yun Luo. Naturally she didn't believe it. Even if Yun Yao's words were reasonable she couldn't accept this result. Until now when she saw Yun Zhongqi carrying Yun Luo's corpse, she had no choice but to believe it. Yun Zhongqi walked to the throne in the great assembly hall and sat down. His body emitted a powerful aura as he glanced at everyone. Everyone quieted down and looked at him with burning eyes, waiting for him to announce the result. Ji Tianxing walked to Yun Yao's side. When he saw Yun Yao's questioning look he nodded slightly, indicating that everything had gone smoothly for Yun Yao. At this time Yun Zhongqi said in a loud and dignified voice, "Everyone, a lot of things happened last night. The palace is in chaos and everyone is in a state of panic. Everyone thought that Ji Tianxing assassinated the matriarch and was locked in the underground ice prison by me. I wanted to order him to be executed so he took the opportunity to sneak an attack on me. He severely injured me and escaped from the ice prison. But that's not the truth. Ji Tianxing was wrongly accused. This was a conspiracy by the Duanmu family and the Murong family against our Cloud Spirit Palace. After working together with Ji Tianxing, we finally found the truth and found the murderer." Chapter 760. Yun Zhongqi solemnly announced the result. After listening to his explanation, the crowd finally understood the cause and process of the matter. Everyone revealed a look of sudden realization and let out a burst of exclamations of anger, hatred, and admiration. I never thought that the truth would be like this. The Duanmu family and the Murong family are too despicable. They actually planted a spy in our Cloud Spirit Palace more than 10 years in advance. They are simply vicious. That damned Yun Luo, to think that our Yun family trusted her so much. She was actually the most hidden spy. You may know a person for a long time but not their heart. Young Master Ji's intelligence is truly amazing. If it was anyone else who was framed by Yun Luo like this, they would be helpless and unable to defend themselves. That's right. No wonder young Miss is so devoted to young Master Ji. Young Master Ji is so talented and intelligent. He and young Miss are truly a match made in heaven. Last night such a huge disturbance caused everyone to be in a state of panic. Fortunately, young Master Ji turned the tide and quickly resolved this disturbance. It won't affect tomorrow's birthday banquet. Our Yun family has a son-in-law like young Master Ji. Why should we worry about not being able to resist the Duanmu and Murong families' villains? The Yun family's elders, managers and commanders were all enthusiastically discussing and exclaiming. While they hated the Duanmu and Murong family, they also admired Ji Tianxing's shrewdness and intelligence. In the eyes of the crowd, Ji Tianxing was condemned by everyone last night. The evidence was conclusive and there was almost no chance for him to clear his name. If it was anyone else in that situation, it would be impossible for them to prove their innocence, let alone find the real culprit. But Ji Tianxing did it. Moreover, he only used a short night to resolve this disturbance and successfully find the real culprit. Such an outstanding performance caused everyone present to exclaim in admiration. It would even be passed down as a legend that would spread throughout the Yun family. Even Bailey Ningxu had a whole new level of respect for Ji Tianxing, greatly favoring him. While everyone was discussing and exclaiming, she also turned her head to look at Ji Tianxing beside her. Her eyes were gentle and her tone was apologetic as she said, "Tianxing, I've wronged you last night. Auntie has not been deceived by the scoundrel and has always believed that you are innocent. It is only to find out the real culprit that I put you in." Without waiting for her to finish, Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. "Auntie, you don't need to say more. Tianxing understands. You and Uncle Yun are the head and mistress of the family. You have a high position and are wise and farsighted, so of course you can see things clearly. How could Duanmu and the Murong family's crafty schemes deceive you?" Hearing him say this, Bailey Ningxu's gaze became even gentler, her impression of him becoming even better. Yun Yao held Ji Tianxing's arm and pulled Bailey Ningxu's wrist, smiling. "Tianxing, mother, we're going to be a family soon. What's the point of saying such polite words? It's because we trust each other and work together as a family that we can quickly resolve the scoundrels' crafty schemes. As long as our hearts work together, even if Duanmu and the Murong family have more crafty schemes, we won't be afraid. It's exactly like that. Bailey Ningxu quickly nodded, revealing a gratified expression. Ji Tianqing also smiled and nodded, tightly holding Yun Yao's slender hand. Their fingers intertwined, their hearts and minds connected. He sighed with emotion in his heart. Only after experiencing the trials of wind and rain can one see true feelings. After last night's disturbance, not only did I not become enemies with the Yun family, we even became closer. Yao Yao's mother approved of me and we're even more like a family now. I wonder how Duanmu and the Murong family will feel when they hear this news. Following this, Yun Zhongqi interrogated the middle-aged servant in front of everyone. The middle-aged servant's cultivation had been crippled and he had become an ordinary person without the strength to truss a chicken. He had fallen into the hands of so many strong people and was in a situation where he could neither beg for life nor die. Even if he had a strong will, he wouldn't say anything even if he had to die. However, Miracle Dr. Bailey personally made him suffer, torturing him until he hovered between life and death, enduring unimaginable pain and suffering. In the end, the middle-aged servant was tortured to the point where he didn't even look human anymore and his will completely collapsed. He finally confessed the truth, only asking for a quick and painless death. I was originally an elite of the soul-herding hall that the Duanmu family raised. I entered Cloud Soul Palace 9 years ago and disguised myself as a spy. The Duanmu family head gave a secret order to have Luo assassinate Bailey Ningxu and frame Ji Tianqing for the sake of breaking the relationship between Ji Tianqing and the Yun family. This morning, the Duanmu family head found out that Cloud Soul Palace was in chaos and ordered me to give the soul-reaping bell to Luo so that he could assassinate Yun Zhongqi. The middle-aged servant intermittently confessed the truth and told everyone about Duanmu Huang's plan. Finally, everyone understood the whole story. After he finished, Yun Zhongqi fulfilled his wish and gave him a quick and painless death. This matter was finally over and the disturbance from last night was finally settled. Yun Zhongqi had the guards take the middle-aged servant and Yun Luo's corpse away. He then announced in a dignified voice, "Tomorrow is Miracle Dr. Bailey's 300th birthday. Now that the disturbance has settled, everyone should quickly clean up the mess and prepare for tomorrow's birthday banquet." He gave a series of orders and assigned tasks to all the elders, managers and commanders. After the meeting was over, everyone left the meeting hall and went to carry out their respective tasks. Everyone spread the news and it quickly spread throughout Cloud Soul Palace. Everyone in the Yun family knew the truth of the matter. Originally, everyone in Cloud Soul Palace was in a state of panic. Tens of thousands of people were discussing the matter and rumors were spreading everywhere. After everyone learned the truth, they all calmed down. Then they erupted into even more heated discussions and exclamations. The entire Yun family had a clearer understanding of Ji Tianqing's shrewdness and wisdom. They respected and worshipped him even more. Soon, everyone in the Yun family began to get busy. Many guests from Central State had arrived at Cloud Soul Palace early. The first elder led the disciples of the Yun family in charge of welcoming and greeting the guests and arranging accommodations for them. The second elder was in charge of cleaning up the mess. He led a large group of guards and craftsmen to rebuild the buildings and repair the damaged underground ice prison. The third elder and fourth elder were in charge of preparing for the birthday banquet. The commanders of the guards were in charge of maintaining the peace of Cloud Soul Palace. In short, everything returned to normal and Cloud Soul Palace became lively again. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing chatted for a while before going to Thousand Cloud Palace to accompany Bailey Ningxu. Ji Tianqing returned to Hefeng Garden by himself. The little black dragon and Qianyu had been waiting in Hefeng Garden for news. They had been waiting anxiously for a long time and were filled with worry. Seeing him return safely, the little black dragon and Qianyu felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. They excitedly came up to him and asked about what had happened. Ji Tianqing brought the two of them back to his room. He sat down and drank tea as he recounted what had happened. Last night's events had been filled with twists and turns. The little black dragon and Qianyu were excited and intoxicated as they listened. The night quickly passed and a new day arrived. Chapter 761. Since early morning, many guests had arrived at Cloud Spirit Palace. These guests were dressed luxuriously and had extraordinary bearings. They were the leaders and experts of the various forces in Central State. Everyone entered Cloud Spirit Palace in an endless stream, bringing rich gifts with them. The great elder of Cloud Spirit Palace and many disciples of the Yun family welcomed the guests warmly at the entrance of Cloud Spirit Palace and settled the guests down. After the guests entered Cloud Spirit Palace, some of them rested in the guest rooms while others strolled around the palace and enjoyed the scenery. Most of them gathered in groups of 3 to 5. They either talked loudly or secretly about important matters. All the major forces had received the news in advance. Cloud Spirit Palace was holding a birthday banquet for Miracle Dr. Bailey to use this opportunity to rally the heroes and participate in this grand event. Many of the forces had enmity with the Duanmu family or had animosity and conflicts. They were not qualified to go against the Duanmu family and could only swallow their anger. Now that Cloud Spirit Palace had stood out and wanted to have an open battle with the Duanmu family, of course they would use this opportunity to take revenge and beat the Duanmu family while they were down. There were also many forces that had no enmity or relationship with the Duanmu family. They just wanted to use this opportunity to gain support from Cloud Spirit Palace and gain more benefits. In short, most of the forces and experts who came to Cloud Spirit Palace for the birthday banquet were on Cloud Spirit Palace's side. Many of the forces were full of anticipation for the big event that Cloud Spirit Palace was about to announce. Of course, among the guests, there were some people with evil intentions who were secretly observing the situation and movements in Cloud Spirit Palace. These people were spies from the Murong family and the Duanmu family. They had deliberately disguised their identities and sneaked in to gather information. As long as they did not cause trouble, it would be difficult for people to detect them. In addition, there were many young talents in Cloud Spirit Palace. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 and discussed another matter. Most of these young martial artists were handsome and elegant. They were all genius disciples from various big families and forces. As early as half a month ago, they had already received the news that Miracle Dr. Bailey had returned to the central region and would no longer travel the world. Miracle Dr. Bailey felt that he was old and wanted to use this opportunity to pick a young talent to be his last disciple and teach him the medical skills that he had spent his life practicing. Everyone in the world knew that Miracle Dr. Bailey was the top miracle doctor in the continent. His medical skills were unparalleled in the world, and he had the miraculous ability to bring the dead back to life. If one could obtain the inheritance of divine Dr. Bailey's medical skills, it would be a supreme glory that would make everyone in the world jealous. Even if he could only learn 30% to 50% of his skills, he would definitely be praised as a divine doctor. Moreover, if anyone could become Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple, not only would they have the support of a peerless miracle doctor, they would also have the backing of Cloud Spirit Palace. There were also many honors and substantial benefits that could last for 3 days and 3 nights. In short, if he could acknowledge divine Dr. Bailey as his master, that would be a heaven-sent opportunity to reach the heavens in a single bound. The young geniuses of the various powers of the Central Plains were all filled with excitement when they heard the news. Today, 80% of the young talents who came to Cloud Spirit Palace to celebrate the birthday had brought an extremely generous gift for apprenticeship. They were prepared to present it to Miracle Dr. Bailey, hoping to gain Miracle Dr. Bailey's appreciation and favor. As time passed, more and more guests arrived at Cloud Spirit Palace. The palace became more and more lively. Xianxia had been meditating and cultivating in Hefeng Garden. He paid no attention to the outside world and focused on cultivating the pure heart demon suppression art. He was now at the 6th level of the Sky Origin stage. His cultivation base was stable and his martial arts were profound. He was not far from the 7th level of the Sky Origin stage. He had already cultivated the ultimate sword body. Next, he needed to cultivate the 9th level of the sword heart Dao. Once he successfully condensed the sword heart, he would have completed the cultivation of the sword heart Dao. However, the 9th level of the sword heart Dao was the most difficult secret skill to cultivate. He needed to merge the sword embryo in the heart and then refine it into the sword heart. How difficult and inconceivable was this? Xianxia estimated that he would need at least 3 to 4 years of hard work to truly cultivate the sword heart Dao and condense the sword heart. Such an extremely fast cultivation speed was already shocking. He could be called a peerless genius. However, he was not satisfied. He still felt that this cultivation speed was too slow. Ever since he started cultivating the pure heart demon suppression art, he accidentally discovered that this art could refine the heart. It was extremely powerful and helpful for him to condense the sword heart. Therefore, he had been cultivating the pure heart demon suppression art. He wanted to condense the sword heart Dao as soon as possible. Unknowingly, a day passed quickly. It was evening. Under the golden light of the setting sun, Cloud's spirit palace shone with golden light. It was magnificent and exuded a sacred and solemn aura. The banquet was about to begin. The main hall of Cloud's spirit palace had been properly decorated. It was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. It was a joyous scene. In the square in front of the hall, which could accommodate thousands of people, there were over 100 tables. There were all kinds of spiritual fruits, pastries, and fine wines on the tables. Countless distinguished guests rushed to the square in front of the hall to wait for the banquet to begin. Everyone in the Yun clan was ready. They only needed to wait for the clan leader's order to start the banquet. Ji Tianqing also finished his cultivation. He left Hefeng Garden and rushed to the main hall of Cloud Spirit Palace. When he arrived at the square in front of the hall, he saw that there were over 2,000 people gathered in the huge square. Other than the guards of Cloud Spirit Palace standing around and over 100 maids of the Yun clan, there were over 2,000 guests in the square. These guests were all leaders and young talents of the major forces in the Central Plains. They were all influential figures in the Central Plains and were all famous heroes. Ji Tianqing's eyes swept across the square. With just a few glances, he could tell that the guests were from over 100 wealthy clans and forces. Cloud Spirit Palace is indeed worthy of being one of the 3 great thousand ancient families. It has such great prestige and appeal. It seems that at least half of the first-rate wealthy clans in the Central Plains are here. While Ji Tianqing was pondering silently, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in his ears. "Hey Tianqing, why are you here?" It was the voice of a young man. There was a hint of surprise in his tone. Ji Tianqing subconsciously turned his head to look. He saw a young martial artist in a green robe. He had a dignified appearance and was looking at him with a smile. He immediately recognized that this person was Ling Yixue. "Senior brother Ling, you're here too?" Ji Tianqing nodded at him and greeted him. Ling Yixue quickly came in front of him and said with a smile, "Cloud Spirit Palace is holding a birthday banquet. Miracle Dr. Bailey is celebrating his 300th birthday. How can I miss it? Of course, I'm here to ask for a cup of wine." He was the crown prince of the monarch mansion. He was the top genius of the human race. Of course, he was qualified to attend this birthday banquet. Cloud Spirit Palace would even treat him as an honored guest. Ji Tianqing was just a little confused. He asked, "Senior brother Ling, why are you staying in the square? Why don't you go to the hall and sit?" Ling Yixue waved his hand and said with a smile, "Those sitting in the hall are the leaders of the various forces. They are all senior experts who want to discuss important matters with Patriarch Yun. I'm just here to join in the fun. I just want to stay in the square and have a chat with the crown princes of the same generation." Hearing him say that, Ji Tianqing saw that there were indeed 3 young talents 5 steps behind him. The 3 of them were all crown princes of the human race. Ji Tianqing had seen them a few times. He was not unfamiliar with them. 2 of them had even participated in the fight for the title of Heavenly Stellar Territory Lord. They were Lu Ziyuan and Yi Yifan. Noticing Ji Tianqing's gaze on them, the 3 of them hastily walked over and cupped their fists towards Ji Tianqing. "Greetings, Senior Brother Ji." Senior Brother Ji is even more elegant than before. The strength, status, and reputation of the 3 of them were not much different from Ling Yixue. However, compared to Ji Tianqing, they were far behind. Their attitude towards Ji Tianqing was somewhat respectful. When they spoke, they had smiles on their faces. Their tone revealed a sense of closeness. Chapter 762. Ji Tianqing exchanged some pleasantries with Ling Yichen and the others before he prepared to leave. However, the 3 princes stopped Ji Tianqing with a smile. "Prince Tianqing, please wait. Senior brother Ji, we have a presumptuous request. We hope you can help us with it." As they spoke, the 3 princes looked at Ling Yichen and signaled him with their eyes. Ling Yichen was a little embarrassed. He revealed a hesitant look as if he wanted to say something but stopped himself. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing realized that the four of them must have something to ask. He looked at Ling Yichen and asked calmly, "Senior brother Ling, what's the matter?" Ling Yichen looked around. Seeing that there was no one else, he lowered his voice and said, "Junior brother Ji, we came to Cloud Soul Palace with a purpose. We heard that Miracle Dr. Bailey is going to choose a last disciple at the birthday banquet to teach his lifelong medical skills. So we want to ask for your help." Ji Tianxing suddenly understood. Although Ling Yichen, Yi Yifan, and the other three were the princes of the imperial residence, they were the top prodigies of the human race. However, the imperial residence only taught martial cultivation. They would not specifically teach alchemy, formation, or weapon refinement. In the imperial residence's motto, only martial cultivation was the right path. The other alchemy, formations, talismans, and weapons were all unorthodox. Even the god masters of the imperial residence would often warn the princes not to put their thoughts on unorthodox methods, which would affect their martial cultivation. Therefore, if the princes wanted to cultivate the profound unorthodox methods, they could only think of their own ways. Although the princes' identities were honorable, Miracle Dr. Bailey's medical skills were unparalleled in the continent. If they could become Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple, it would be a great honor for the princes. Ji Tianxing pointed at the countless young talents in the square and said to Ling Yichen, "Senior brother Ling, you're not the only one who wants to be Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple. I'm afraid all the young talents here today have the same idea. You can just tell Patriarch Yun or Miracle Dr. Bailey your wishes. What's the use of looking for me? With your status as princes, you will definitely have a better chance than those young geniuses." Ling Yichen gently shook his head and revealed a bitter smile. "Junior Martial Brother Ji, we know that you have a close relationship with Yun Yao. That Miracle Dr. Bailey is Yun Yao's grandfather, so he shouldn't be a stranger to you. We just want to inquire about it. Do you know if Divine Dr. Bailey has any specific requirements for accepting a disciple? Did he ever reveal anything about it?" Ji Tianxing finally understood that the four of them wanted to gather information and make preparations in advance. So he's Ji Tianxing? It's true that hearing about him is not as good as meeting him in person, and meeting him in person is even more impressive. The number one genius of the human race, the genius imperial prince, the Tianjin region lord. With such dazzling glory and light on him, it's enough to crush the young people of his generation. Is he the one who destroyed the Duanmu family's herb garden alone, and caused the Duanmu family's vitality to be greatly damaged? I've only heard of his legends before, but I've finally seen him in person today. He's indeed extraordinary and in high spirits. The young talents of his generation were both envious and jealous of him. The leaders and powerhouses of the older generation were also very wary of him, and did not dare to underestimate him. Ji Tianxing did not say or do anything. He just calmly walked across the square and naturally became the focus of the crowd. It was not until he left the square and walked into the main hall that the crowd withdrew their gazes, and began to whisper to each other. Now he had become one of the most distinguished figures in the central state in just a year, and he was so dazzling that people could only look up to him. At this moment, at the entrance of the square, a guard commander announced loudly, "The Emperor of the Imperial Court has arrived at the Cloud Spirit Palace with his heavenly concubine to congratulate Miracle Dr. Bailey on his birthday." The loud voice spread throughout the square, and more than 2,000 people turned around to look at the entrance of the square. Many powerhouses and leaders in the main hall also stood up and looked at the end of the square. The great elder of the Yun family also brought a few deacons out of the main hall, and came to the square to welcome them personally. On the wide road at the entrance of the square, there was a dignified and graceful young man and woman. They were surrounded by guards and they walked over in a dignified manner. On the left was a young man in a golden dragon robe. He had a dignified appearance and he was extraordinarily handsome. He was the son of heaven Long Yunxiao. Beside him was a beautiful woman in a phoenix robe. Her appearance was extremely beautiful, and her temperament was graceful and elegant. She was the heavenly concubine and Suwen. Chapter 763. At this moment, Everyone's gaze was focused on Long Yunxiao and Ensuan. Long Yunxiao was handsome and extraordinary, while Ensuan was beautiful and dignified. In everyone's eyes they were a perfect match. Only a very small number of people, including Ji Tianxing, knew that this couple was just a couple in name. However, when Ji Tianxing saw Long Yunxiao and Ensuan walk side by side through the plaza, he was still a little surprised. Up until now, this should be the first time Long Yunxiao has brought Ensuan out in public, right? Although Long Yunxiao might not have any feelings for Ensuan. But he was willing to bring Ensuan to the birthday celebration, and was willing to let Ensuan hold his arm. This was a big step forward. I'm sure Ensuan's mood right now must be very happy, right? Perhaps Ensuan has already learned how to capture Long Yunxiao's heart? This is a good start. These thoughts flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He felt gratified that Long Yunxiao and Ensuan's relationship had warmed up. Soon Long Yunxiao and Ensuan arrived at the entrance of the main hall under the respectful welcome of the Yun family's head elder and the greetings of the crowd. Before they even stepped through the door, Long Yunxiao and Ensuan saw Ji Tianxing. The husband and wife looked at him at the same time, and walked in front of him with tacit understanding. They nodded and greeted him. Ji Tianxing, I trust you've been well since we last met. Long Yunxiao looked at him with a calm expression, and a smile hung on his lips as he greeted him. Greetings, son of heaven, heavenly consort. Ji Tianxing cupped his hands and greeted them and exchanged a few pleasantries. After he finished chatting with Long Yunxiao, Ensuan said with a smile, Prince Tianxing, why don't you sit with us? We're all familiar with each other and we can chat happily. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and looked at Long Yunxiao. Seeing that Long Yunxiao's expression didn't change, he smiled and said, Since Heavenly Consort has invited me, I'll accept. Thus, the three of them walked side by side to the table on the left side of the hall and sat down. In the main hall to the north was the main seat. Only Yun Zhongqi, his wife, and the birthday boy Miracle Dr. Bailey were allowed to sit there. As for the distinguished guests, they sat on the left and right sides of the main hall. Among them, the seat of honor on the left was the most honorable. It was a seat reserved for VIPs, and only Long Yunxiao and Ensuan were allowed to sit there. However, there was one more person now, Ji Tianxing. However, none of the guests in the hall felt that it was inappropriate. They all thought that it was only right and proper. After Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao took their seats, most of the VIPs had arrived. The guard commander at the entrance of the main hall announced loudly, The birthday star Miracle Dr. Bailey has arrived. Master and Mistress have arrived. Along with a majestic and vigorous voice, Divine Dr. Bailey appeared with Yun Zhongqi and his wife in white robes fluttering in the wind. They strode into the main hall. Immediately, everyone in the main hall hurriedly stood up and bowed to Divine Dr. Bailey to congratulate him. Miracle Dr. Bailey's face was glowing. He walked through the main hall with a smile on his face and cupped his fists to thank the guests on both sides. Not long after, Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, and his wife took their seats at the main seat. Miracle Dr. Bailey cupped his fists and bowed to the guests. His voice was loud and clear as he thanked the guests and welcomed them to Cloud Spirit Palace. After he finished speaking, Yun Zhongqi announced that the birthday banquet had officially begun. Along with the sound of gongs and drums, groups of young and beautiful maids walked out like flowing water. They brought out many delicious dishes and nectar. There were also many charming dancers and musicians who played beautiful music and performed beautiful dances. In the main hall and the square in front of the main hall, more than 2,000 guests drank to their heart's content to celebrate Miracle Dr. Bailey's 300th birthday. Following that, the distinguished guests in the main hall took advantage of the lively and joyous atmosphere to offer their congratulations to Miracle Dr. Bailey. A burly middle-aged expert stood up first and bowed to Miracle Dr. Bailey. He said in a loud voice, Miracle Dr. Bailey, I am Li Hao, the president of the Middle State Hero Union. I have heard of Miracle Dr. Bailey's name since I was young. Today, I have specially come to Cloud Spirit Palace to celebrate your birthday. I wish Miracle Dr. Bailey a long life and good fortune. After he finished speaking, he raised his wine cup and drank the wine in it in one gulp. Immediately, for experts from the Heroes Assembly carried 2 luxurious chests into the main hall and presented the treasures as congratulatory gifts. The 4 experts put down the big boxes and opened them in front of everyone. They saw that the 2 big boxes were filled with dazzling upper spiritual stones, various pearls and gems, as well as fine gold and jade. They bloomed with dazzling brilliance. The 2 big boxes of treasures were really expensive. They were generous. Many of the guests were amazed. Li Hao's expression did not change, but he was secretly pleased with himself. After all, he was the first to present a generous gift. Although it did not enter Miracle Dr. Bailey's eyes, it would leave a deep impression on the Yun family. He would definitely be recognized by Cloud Spirit Palace. Sure enough, Miracle Dr. Bailey's expression did not change. He smiled and nodded his head in thanks. Yun Zhongqi looked deeply at Li Hao before ordering the housekeeper beside him to put away the 2 boxes of treasures. Li Hao of the Hero Union was the first to present his treasures and received Yun Zhongqi's recognition. This made the other powerful people envious and restless. City Lord of Tomorrow Night City, Qin He, congratulates Miracle Dr. Bailey on his 300th birthday. I hereby present my humble gift. 2 guards carried the simple and unadorned boxes into the main hall. They opened the boxes in front of everyone and presented the treasures to Miracle Dr. Bailey. Inside the boxes, there was a piece of 10,000-year cold jade and a piece of 10,000-year fire jade. Such a peerless jade was a top-notch treasure material. It was rare and difficult to find. Its attributes were ice and fire, which made people click their tongues in wonder. A Grandmaster blacksmith could use these 2 pieces of jade to refine a soul-grade Dharma treasure. It would definitely have great effects. Miracle Dr. Bailey could use these 2 pieces of jade to display his medical skills and treat people. It would also be of great help and increase his strength. These gifts could not be considered priceless, but they catered to Miracle Dr. Bailey's preferences. Miracle Dr. Bailey's face was full of smiles as he hurriedly nodded his head in thanks. Yun Zhongqi also remembered the City Lord of Tomorrow Night City and had a whole new level of respect for him. Next, the various powerful people and leaders of the various forces all stood up to congratulate Miracle Dr. Bailey on his birthday. They presented the gifts that they had prepared beforehand. These forces were either rich and powerful families that had been passed down for hundreds of years, or they were ancient sects, or they were the lords of mighty cities. The gifts that they presented were either extravagant to the point of causing people to exclaim in admiration, or they were strange to the point that they catered to Miracle Dr. Bailey's preferences. In short, everyone had put in a lot of effort to prepare their gifts. Ji Tianxing could see that the reason why the various forces were willing to spend so much money to present their gifts was not only to congratulate Miracle Dr. Bailey on his birthday, but also to express their stance to Cloud Spirit Palace, hoping to gain Cloud Spirit Palace's recognition. After all, Cloud Spirit Palace was going to announce something big tonight and summon all the heroes to participate in the grand occasion. Chapter 764. Soon an hour had passed. Sitting in the hall were over 60 patriarchs, city lords, sect masters and leaders. All of them presented their congratulatory gifts to Miracle Dr. Bailey. Most of them had come to cooperate with Cloud Spirit Palace. Their gifts were extremely precious and there was no lack of rare and precious treasures. Ji Tianxing had also seen many precious treasures, which had widened his horizons. At the same time, he had a deeper understanding of the power and prestige of Cloud Spirit Palace in Zhongzhou. It was really terrifying. Following that, many young talents in the square also entered the hall to congratulate Miracle Dr. Bailey and present their congratulatory gifts. Although these young talents' gifts were not as extravagant as those of the big forces, they were still very valuable. They had put in a lot of effort into it. There were all kinds of gifts, including spiritual stones, elixirs, charms, and all kinds of materials. There were also antiques and precious treasures. Although these young talents did not state their intentions clearly, everyone could see that they were using the birthday as an opportunity to be apprenticed to Miracle Dr. Bailey. Everyone wanted to show off in front of Miracle Dr. Bailey and leave a good impression on him. Even the imperial princes of the imperial mansion were no exception. They had all spent a lot of money and took out precious treasures as gifts. Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi thanked everyone for their gifts. Everyone entered and left the hall in an endless stream, which made the atmosphere very lively and festive. On the right side of the hall, Zhu Fifan sat at the table expressionlessly and looked at everyone calmly. Although he did not show it on his face, he sneered in his heart. A group of guys who do not know the immensity of heaven and earth. How dare they dream of becoming my grandfather's last disciple and inheriting the medical skills? Humph. Do you think you can get what you want by presenting generous gifts? I can guarantee that after tonight my grandfather won't even remember your names. My grandfather's medical skills must be mine. Finally, over 60 young geniuses had presented their congratulatory gifts. No one went forward to present their gifts in public. Many people looked at the left side of the hall. It was the emperors, the heavenly concubines and Ji Tianxing's turn to congratulate Miracle Dr. Bailey. Many experts in the hall focused their gazes on the three of them, looking forward to what would happen next. Even on the square outside the hall, many young geniuses stuck their heads out to look into the hall, and they wanted to see what treasures the three of them were going to offer. After all, the emperor and the heavenly concubine represented the imperial court. Ji Tianxing was also the #1 genius of the human clan in the Central Plains, the realm lord of Tianqian. Their gifts should have exceeded everyone else's. However, Ji Tianxing obviously didn't realize this. He was looking around, his eyes sweeping the hall twice, looking for Yun Yao's figure everywhere. Unfortunately, he couldn't find Yun Yao anywhere in the hall. Strange, tonight is Miracle Dr. Bailey's birthday banquet. Why didn't Yao Yao come? Where did she go? Could he have been delayed by something? Just as he was worrying, Long Yunxiao and Ensuan stood up. Under everyone's gaze, the two of them cupped their hands and congratulated Miracle Dr. Bailey. I, together with the heavenly concubine, congratulate Miracle Dr. Bailey on his birthday. May the Miracle Doctor live forever. After the greeting, Long Yunxiao took out a treasure box from his interspatial ring. Divine Dr. Bailey, today is your 300th birthday. This monarch has already prepared a congratulatory gift a month ago. This is a core crystal from the fiery mountain in the southern wasteland. 600 years ago, a powerful soul refining stage cultivator risked his life and found this crystal in the sea of lava thousands of miles deep underground. As he spoke, Long Yunxiao opened the box and a walnut-sized fiery red crystal core appeared. When the box was opened, the crystal core emitted a dazzling red light, illuminating the entire hall. The power of the flame emitted by the crystal core was terrifying. It instantly doubled the temperature of the hall. Although everyone present was a martial Dao expert, they still felt their bodies burning. Even their blood and true essence flowed faster. Everyone stared at the earth core crystal core with wide eyes, and their eyes were filled with shock. Oh my god! It's an earth fire crystal core. Such a treasure comes from the depths of the earth. Only a spirit refinement realm expert can find it. Such a treasure is simply priceless. Even an ordinary Tongxian realm martial artist could become a Sky Origin realm martial artist if he could make good use of this crystal core. This is a priceless treasure. I didn't expect the Son of Heaven to be so generous. This treasure is comparable to a spirit-level magic treasure. All the experts and leaders in the hall, as well as the young talents outside the hall, were shocked by the earth core crystal core. Even Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi's eyes flashed. They didn't expect Long Yunxiao to present such a precious treasure in front of everyone. Long Yunxiao continued, I know that your medical skills are unparalleled in the world and your alchemy skills are unparalleled in the world. If this earth core crystal core is integrated into your alchemy furnace, it will provide you with an endless supply of alchemy fire. It will make your alchemy twice the result with half the effort. Of course, with your peerless alchemy skills, this earth core crystal core is just icing on the cake. Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi quickly stood up and bowed to Long Yunxiao and Ensuan to express their gratitude. Miracle Dr. Bailey smiled kindly and said, The Son of Heaven has brought the heavenly concubine to Cloud Spirit Palace to celebrate my birthday. It has brought light to Cloud Spirit Palace and made me feel grateful. But the Son of Heaven has given me such a precious treasure. How can I accept it? As the saying goes, one should not accept a reward without any effort. I ask the Son of Heaven to accept such a great gift. Long Yunxiao smiled and said, Miracle Dr. Bailey, this is a token of my sincerity. Please accept it. Moreover, I have been studying alchemy for the past few years. There are many things that are difficult to understand. I have always wanted to ask you for advice, but I never had the chance. Hearing Long Yunxiao's words, everyone's expression changed slightly. Even Bailey Yi's eyes flashed with a hint of astonishment. Everyone understood that Long Yunxiao wanted to be Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple and learn his alchemy skills. The leaders of the major forces had complicated expressions. The young talents outside the main hall also showed anxiety and jealousy. They cursed in their hearts. Long Yunxiao, as the son of heaven, actually wants to be Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple? It's over. We have calculated everything, but we missed the son of heaven. Damn it. He is the son of heaven of the imperial court. He has a good relationship with Cloud Spirit Palace. Now he has given such a rare treasure. It seems that this disciple position is only for him. Compared to the son of heaven, we are simply clouds and mud. How can we compete with him? It turns out that he is the strongest competitor. Even Zhu Fifen's expression changed abruptly. His eyes flashed with a touch of darkness and his fists were secretly clenched. Damn it. Previously there was Ji Tianqing and now there is Long Yunxiao. As the son of heaven, he is also coveting grandfather's inherited medical skills. This is big trouble. Grandfather may not be able to reject him. Zhu Fifen felt a great sense of crisis and was extremely anxious. Among the people in the main hall, only Ji Tianqing's expression did not change. He did not have much of a reaction. Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi were stunned. Apparently, they did not expect that the son of heaven would also want to be Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple. This was too sudden. Everyone's eyes gathered on Miracle Dr. Bailey to see how he would choose. Even Long Yunxiao was looking at him with an expectant look. In everyone's opinion, Miracle Dr. Bailey would most likely agree. After all, the son of heaven's status was extremely noble and his talent was extremely high. He would not tarnish the reputation of Miracle Dr. Bailey. Chapter 765. If it was anyone else, it would be hard for them to reject the emperor. Everyone thought that Miracle Dr. Bailey would be humble and accept the Earth Core Crystal Core with a smile, accepting the emperor's good intentions. However, Miracle Dr. Bailey revealed an apologetic look and said in a serious tone, "Emperor, if that's the case, then I can't accept this gift. You are the emperor. Other than the emperor and the imperial tutor, who else can be your master? Moreover, the emperor and the imperial tutor are much more knowledgeable than me. Why should the emperor give up what's close at hand and seek what's far away?" Hearing Divine Dr. Bailey's words, everyone revealed a stunned expression. Miracle Dr. Bailey actually rejected? How is that possible? If Miracle Dr. Bailey doesn't even like the emperor, then who else is qualified to be his disciple? Long Yunxiao seemed to have expected Miracle Dr. Bailey to reject, so he wasn't surprised. However, a trace of disappointment flashed across his eyes. He secretly glanced at Ji Tianqing and sighed in his heart. Sigh. Seems like Miracle Dr. Bailey has already chosen his disciple? Thinking of this, he maintained his smile and said to Miracle Dr. Bailey, "Since I'm not fated to be your disciple, let's not talk about this. However, please accept this gift." Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi both understood that if they didn't accept the emperor's gift, it would seem that the emperor was stingy. Therefore, Yun Zhongqi opened his mouth to accept the gift on behalf of Miracle Dr. Bailey and thanked the emperor again and again. The matter came to an end. Although it caused quite a commotion, it soon calmed down. Everyone's eyes were focused on Ji Tianqing, and they were filled with anticipation. Ji Tianqing stood up and bowed with a smile on his face. "Junior Ji Tianqing congratulates Miracle Dr. Bailey on your 300th birthday. May your fortune be as great as the East Sea and your longevity be as long as the stars. Junior has also prepared a small gift for you as a token of my sincerity." After that, Ji Tianqing took out 2 treasure boxes from his interspatial ring. Immediately, a maid came forward to receive the treasure box. She held the treasure box with both hands and walked to the front of the main seat, opening it in front of everyone. Ji Tianqing did not introduce anything because the things in the box were not worthy of a grand introduction. Everyone's gazes were gathered on the treasure box, staring at the item in the box. In the treasure box on the left, there were 3 jade green and translucent medicinal herbs. The medicinal herbs were protected by the array formation of the treasure box. Even now they were still full of vitality, exuding rich greenwood spirit qi. These were obviously 3 rare and precious herbs. Many of the experts present could not name these herbs. On the other hand, the treasure box on the right contained a few simple and aged artifacts. There were fragments of magic treasures, ancient books on the Tao of Pills, and some other treasures that he couldn't name. These treasures all had a common characteristic, and that was that they were very ancient. They all had a history of over 1,000 years, and seemed to contain some secrets from before the ancient times. However, Ji Tianqing's experience was still shallow, so he couldn't figure out the mysteries of these things. The medicinal herbs and ancient artifacts that he gave were all carefully selected by him. They would definitely be useful to divine Dr. Bailey. Moreover, he didn't have much family wealth to begin with. It was already not easy for him to take out these things. Those 6 medicinal herbs were the most precious medicinal herbs that he specially picked when he destroyed the Duanmu family's longevity garden. If other young talents gave these things, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, his status was special. Giving such a congratulatory gift instantly caused the atmosphere in the hall to become somewhat strange. The various experts looked at him with slightly strange gazes, and the young geniuses outside the hall even emitted bursts of discussion. It can't be. Ji Tianqing actually only gave a few medicinal herbs and a pile of junk? Heavens, it's really a small gift. Tisk hee. This gift that Ji Tianqing gave can't even compare to my congratulatory gift. How can he have the nerve to take out these things as congratulatory gifts? Is he looking down on Cloud Spirit Palace? Or is he looking down on divine Dr. Bailey? Many young talents unscrupulously discussed, not concealing the contempt and ridicule in their tone. They had always hoped to become divine Dr. Bailey's disciple and were extremely wary of Ji Tianqing, afraid that this quota would be snatched by Ji Tianqing. Now that Ji Tianqing had taken out an extremely ordinary gift, they took this opportunity to criticize and ridicule Ji Tianqing, making him lose the qualifications to compete for the position of divine doctor's disciple. Tianzi had already been rejected. If Ji Tianqing was also eliminated, the 2 strong competitors would be eliminated and their chances would be even greater. On this point, the dozens of young talents all understood. Hence, everyone added fuel to the fire and the discussion became louder and louder. Everyone in the hall heard it clearly, and there was a subtle change in their gazes. Everyone had the intention of gloating, wanting to see Ji Tianqing make a fool of himself in front of everyone, or how to resolve the awkwardness. But Ji Tianqing's expression did not change. He was still calm and indifferent. Long Yunxiao, who was sitting beside him, secretly asked, "If you are short on money, I can lend you a treasure to help you resolve this matter." Long Yunxiao was also very clear that Ji Tianqing's reputation was very big, but he did not have a strong background, nor did he accumulate many resources and treasures. Ji Tianqing rejected and said, "Thank you for your kindness, Tianzi, but there is no need." The discussion outside the hall became noisier and noisier, and the atmosphere in the hall became more and more awkward. Divine Dr. Bailey hurriedly opened his mouth and said with a smile, "Tianqing, you have already given me a huge congratulatory gift previously, which made me very satisfied and happy. Why do you have to give me another gift tonight?" Hearing him say this, all the guests were stunned. Ji Tianqing has already given a congratulatory gift? When did this happen? Divine Dr. Bailey wouldn't be deliberately helping Ji Tianqing out of his predicament by saying this, right? Everyone was full of doubts and whispered to each other. Ji Tianqing also raised his eyebrows and felt a little warm in his heart. He thought that divine Dr. Bailey deliberately said this to help him resolve the awkwardness. At this time, divine Dr. Bailey opened his mouth and explained, "Everyone must be confused and think that I am helping Ji Tianqing out, right? In fact, there is something that you all might not know. Just half a month ago, this old man's precious granddaughter, Yunyao, was kidnapped by a demon clan powerhouse and planted with the incomparably vicious blood transformation curse. That is a curse that even I am unable to resolve. No one can save her, and Yao Yao's life is at stake." Hearing this, the guests inside and outside the hall were all shocked. No one would have thought that such a thing would happen to Yunyao. The savage and evil demon clan dared to lay their hands on the young miss of Cloud Spirit Palace. They were simply too despicable and vicious. However, when the princes of the imperial residence heard about this, their expressions changed immediately. They knew the outcome of this matter and immediately guessed divine Dr. Bailey's intention. Divine Dr. Bailey's gaze swept across the hall and he continued in a serious tone. At the critical moment when Yao Yao was about to lose her life, Ji Tianqing stepped forward bravely. With the help of the divine doctor of the imperial residence, he transferred the blood dissipation curse to himself. He used his life to bear the curse and resolved the danger to Yao Yao's life. Yao Yao is not only the apple of Cloud Spirit Palace's eye, but also my most beloved granddaughter. She is more precious than any treasure in this world. Ji Tianqing almost lost his life in order to save Yao Yao. Isn't this a great congratulatory gift to me? What else in this world is more precious than life? Divine Dr. Bailey's words were as loud as a bell and as powerful as thunder. His vigorous and powerful voice reverberated throughout the entire hall, lingering for a long time. Chapter 766. If someone else said these words, everyone might think that it was fake and that they were twisting words to help Ji Tianqing out of the predicament. However, Ji Tianqing did risk his life to save Yun Yao. Yun Yao was divine Dr. Bailey's granddaughter. How noble was her status and how precious was her life. Divine Dr. Bailey was a doctor who had saved countless lives. Of course, he regarded life as the most precious thing. When he said these words, not only did they not have the slightest bit of falsehood, but they also highlighted his noble character and benevolence as a doctor. For a moment, everyone was in awe of divine Dr. Bailey and Ji Tianqing. Because if it were anyone else, they would not be like Ji Tianqing and use their own life to save Yun Yao. Everyone thought about it carefully and was convinced by divine Dr. Bailey's words. Ji Tianqing's gift was indeed a priceless treasure. Just as the hall was silent and everyone's mood was complicated, Long Yun Shao stood up and applauded excitedly. Good. Divine Dr. Bailey said it very well. Life is the most precious and priceless treasure. Divine Dr. Bailey's medical skills are miraculous and his medical ethics are noble. He can be said to be a miraculous doctor with a benevolent heart. He is a role model for all the doctors in the world. This monarch sincerely admires him. Ji Tianqing did not hesitate to save his own life. This monarch also witnessed this matter with his own eyes. This monarch really admires him. As Long Yun Zhao's voice fell, the guests inside and outside the hall also stood up and applauded, cheering for divine Dr. Bailey and Ji Tianqing. The atmosphere in the hall instantly changed from awkward to hot-blooded, resonating and admiring. Those who were gloating and waiting to see Ji Tianqing make a fool of himself immediately withdrew their contempt and showed expressions of heartfelt admiration. In the square in front of the hall, those young talents who were criticizing and ridiculing Ji Tianqing all looked like they had been slapped in the face. Their cheeks turned red and they lowered their heads in shame. Compared to Ji Tianqing's act of sacrificing himself to save others, what they had done just now was truly despicable and disgusting. Even if divine Dr. Bailey announced that he would accept Ji Tianqing as his disciple at this moment, they would have nothing to say, nor would they have any reason to refute. However, things weren't over yet. Divine Dr. Bailey extended his hand and took the treasure box from the maidservant's hand. He carefully observed the 3 stalks of medicinal herbs, the magic treasure, the alchemy book, and the ancient artifact fragment. Everyone looked at him quietly, not knowing what he was going to do. A moment later, Miracle Dr. Bailey suddenly discovered something. Immediately, his eyes surged with radiance as he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. He held the treasure box with the 3 herbs in his hands and said excitedly, "Everyone, perhaps in your eyes, these are only 3 rare herbs. However, I want to tell you all that these 3 herbs are not only rare and precious, but they are also one of a kind. These 3 herbs were called the resurrection grass. No matter who dies, even if their 3 souls and 7 spirits are scattered, I can still use the resurrection grass to revive them. Moreover, the greatest effect of the resurrection grass is to condense the soul. Even if a soul refinement expert's soul is severely injured and on the verge of death, this medicine can be used to heal the injury and recover to its original state. To a soul refinement realm expert, using the resurrection grass to refine the resurrection pill is a miracle medicine to heal the soul injury. With this medicine in hand, a soul refinement realm expert is equivalent to having an extra life." Divine Dr. Bailey's imposing manner was like a rainbow. His voice was filled with excitement and surprise as it reverberated in the hall. Everyone was dumbfounded, dumbstruck. No one would have thought that the ordinary spiritual herbs that they looked down on and ridiculed with contempt were actually priceless treasures. A top-grade spiritual herb that could allow a soul refinement expert to have an extra life. This was absolutely a treasure that would make countless soul refinement experts go crazy for. Many experts in the hall were filled with shock and disbelief. The young talents in the square in front of the hall were even more shocked until they were dumbstruck like wooden chickens. When they regained their senses, their faces were flushed red with shame and their emotions were complicated to the extreme. They didn't dare to raise their heads to look at Ji Tianxing, much less the reaction of the people around them. They were so ashamed that they wished they could find a hole to burrow into. After all, their knowledge was shallow and they didn't recognize the rare resurrection grass. They even opened their mouths to mock Ji Tianxing earlier. How ironic and shameful was this? Although everyone didn't understand how Ji Tianxing could have such a precious spiritual herb, but some experts who knew the inside story immediately guessed that these 3 stalks of resurrection grass were most likely related to the Duanmu family's herb garden. Divine Dr. Bailey was the clearest that these 3 stalks of resurrection grass were definitely snatched from the longevity garden. Because he had traversed the entire profound sky continent and spent dozens of years, but he still couldn't find a spiritual herb like the resurrection grass. Rumor had it that only the Duanmu family had obtained the resurrection grass 200 years ago and nurtured it as the treasure of the longevity garden. Just as everyone's emotions were surging and they were exclaiming inexplicably, Divine Dr. Bailey held up the treasure box that contained all kinds of antique fragments and said excitedly, "Other than the 3 stalks of resurrection grass, these seemingly insignificant antique fragments are also extremely rare treasures. As everyone knows, the mysterious and vast southern wilderness swamp is as mysterious as the eastern sea's bottomless ruins. Within these 2 forbidden areas, there are ancient ruins buried. There are even primordial Soul Supreme's cave residences. Previously, when I was traveling outside, I was exploring the southern wilderness swamp to search for spiritual herbs and ancient ruins. If I'm not wrong, there are a few Dharma treasures and ancient weapon fragments that came from the southern wilderness swamp's 7 Slaughter ancient palace." Hearing Divine Dr. Bailey's words, everyone opened their eyes wide again and revealed a shocked expression. Many experts who had heard of the 7 Slaughter ancient palace couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. In the Middle State there were many legends from the ancient era. It was said that it was a magnificent era where geniuses came forth in large numbers and experts were as numerous as trees in the forest. At that time martial arts prospered in the Xianxia land and the number of primordial Soul Supremes was 10 times more than now. In the historical records, the 7 Slaughter Supremes was a Supreme's elite warrior with boundless power. The 7 Slaughter ancient palace was the cave residence of the 7 Slaughter Supremes. According to the legends, after he had mastered the 7 Slaughter Supremes and surpassed the primordial Soul Supremes, he left the Xianxia land. It was unknown how many rare treasures were hidden in his 7 Slaughter ancient palace. It might even contain his martial arts succession. For thousands of years, countless elite warriors rushed to the southern wilderness swamp dauntlessly. They risked their lives to search for the 7 Slaughter ancient palace and explore the secrets and treasures inside. However, the 7 Slaughter ancient palace was protected by the primordial soul formation and many mysterious and profound defenses. Up until now, no one had solved the secrets of the 7 Slaughter ancient palace and truly explored the depths of the ancient palace. Those seemingly ancient fragments were actually from the 7 Slaughter ancient palace. This was an extremely important clue. A rare treasure. Chapter 767. Those seemingly worthless ancient fragments were actually related to the 7 Kill Supreme's cave abode and martial arts legacy. This was definitely an immeasurably rare treasure. The value of those ancient fragments was even more precious than the resurrection grass. Today, when the news spread, the resurrection grass and the 7 Kills ancient palace's fragments would definitely cause a sensation in the central region. If these 2 treasures were in the hands of the Cloud Spirit Palace, it would be fine. The various forces were afraid of the Cloud Spirit Palace's strength and might not dare to act rashly. If an ordinary wealthy family or force obtained these 2 treasures, it would definitely bring about a fatal disaster. They would be besieged and robbed by countless forces and powerhouses. Thinking of this, many powerhouses' hearts were filled with shock and excitement. Ji Tianxing's gift was too precious. It was even more precious than the earth core crystal core that Long Yunxiao had offered. However, everyone was blind and did not recognize the value of the treasure. They wanted to see Ji Tianqing make a fool of himself and mocked him proudly. This shocking fact gave everyone a resounding slap in the face. They were so ashamed that they wanted to crawl into a hole to hide their faces. Inside and outside the hall, countless guests were silent. Their expressions were ugly and their hearts were filled with shame and awkwardness. When they looked at Ji Tianqing again, they felt that he was even more unfathomable, mysterious, and valiant. He could actually give away such rare and precious treasures. Just how rich and powerful were his assets and treasures. When everyone was mocking and criticizing him, his expression did not change and he was indifferent. How magnanimous was that? Or perhaps when everyone was mocking and criticizing him, his heart was filled with contempt and he did not even bother to open his mouth to explain? Thinking of this, countless guests felt as if they were sitting on pins and needles. They were even more ashamed and wanted to die. Especially those guests who were the loudest and gloating. They were too ashamed to stay any longer and left the banquet dejectedly. However, no one knew that Ji Tianqing's mood at this moment was actually a little confused. He looked at the 3 resurrection grasses and the pile of ancient fragments and muttered to himself, "Did old Master Bailey deliberately make up a lie to scare people? Is this gift really so precious?" In fact, when he destroyed the longevity garden, he saw that the 3 stalks of resurrection grass were the most well-protected and had the most mysterious and powerful auras, so he picked them in passing. He had obtained those ancient, broken fragments by accident when he was looting the spoils of war in recent months. He didn't care about these things at all. He only knew that these fragments were very ancient and mysterious. Miracle Dr. Bailey really wanted to accept Ji Tianqing as his disciple and impart his medical skills to him. From today onwards, Ji Tianqing would have many dazzling halos, including the identity of being Miracle Dr. Bailey's personal disciple. His status would become even more honorable and he would have a peerless miracle doctor as his backer. How enviable of an honor was this! The various experts in the hall all revealed astonished expressions. The young talents in the square in front of the hall were extremely envious of Ji Tianqing. However, Ji Tianqing was so perfect. Not only was he the #1 genius of the human race, but he had also given Miracle Dr. Bailey 2 sets of rare treasures. What reason did Miracle Dr. Bailey have to not choose him as his disciple? None. If it were anyone else, as long as they had a normal brain and IQ, they would definitely choose Ji Tianqing. Countless guests inside and outside the hall suddenly burst into heated discussions. Countless people exclaimed and envied. Zhu Fifan's face became extremely ugly. He clenched his fists so tightly that he didn't even realize that his fingernails were digging into his flesh and bleeding. Even Long Yunxiao glanced sideways at Ji Tianqing as a bitter smile appeared on his face. Miracle Dr. Bailey really chose him early. This guy is really lucky. Everyone was shocked and their eyes were red with envy and jealousy. Only Ji Tianqing was still in a daze. He muttered in his heart, "Why did the old man suddenly announce that he wants to accept me as his disciple? I have never expressed this idea. I almost destroyed his ancient green maple tree before. Doesn't he bear a grudge at all?" At this time, Miracle Dr. Bailey saw that he was silent, so he asked with a smile, "Tianqing, don't you want to be my disciple? Don't you want to learn medical skills from me?" Only then did the guests notice Ji Tianqing's reaction. Immediately they burst into an uproar and another round of heated discussion broke out. It was to the extent that many young geniuses even let out sorrowful roars. God! What's Ji Tianqing's expression? Doesn't he want to be his disciple? This guy is too abominable. We dream of being the disciple of Miracle Dr. Bailey. How dare he refuse? God doesn't open his eyes. The supreme glory that we yearn for even in our dreams has descended upon him, and he dares to despise it? God has eyes. Quickly send down the heavenly thunder to kill Ji Tianqing. He doesn't want to be his disciple, but I do. If I have to be the disciple of Miracle Dr. Bailey, I will kneel down and kowtow 10,000 times. Inside and outside the hall there was a lot of noise and excitement. If Ji Tianqing dared to refuse Miracle Dr. Bailey, those young talents who were crazy with jealousy would rush into the hall and beat him up violently on the ground. Chapter 768. Ji Tianxing had never taken the initiative to ask Bailey Divine Doctor to be his disciple. He didn't even have such a dream or desire. He had always been calm and indifferent towards this matter. However, things had already developed to this point. He couldn't refuse Bailey Divine Doctor in front of everyone, could he? Not only would that hurt Bailey Divine Doctor's face, but it would also make everyone think that he didn't know how to appreciate favors. Since that was the case, then he would reluctantly become Bailey Divine Doctor's disciple. Ji Tianxing revealed a smile and bowed to Bailey Divine Doctor, explaining, "Divine Dr. Bailey, you are a world-renowned Divine Doctor. Your medical skills have reached the pinnacle and are unparalleled in the world. To be able to become your disciple is a great honor for this junior. How could I dare to be unwilling?" The reason why this junior hesitated just now was because of a problem. This junior and Yao Yao are of the same generation. If I were to address you as Yao Yao, then I should call you grandfather. If I were to become your disciple, then wouldn't the seniority be messed up? Hearing his words, Bailey Divine Doctor Yun Zhongqi and the many guests present immediately burst into laughter. Even the 2,000 guests in the square in front of the hall were amused by his words. Yun Zhongqi smiled and shook his head. He stroked his beard and said, "Tianxing, this king knows what you're worried about. However, you don't need to worry about this matter. We are all martial artists. How can we be bound by the etiquette of mortals? Since you've become Bailey Divine Doctor's disciple, you and Bailey Divine Doctor will address each other as master and disciple. As for you and Yao Yao as well as the rest of us, we will still address each other as master and disciple. This way it won't affect your marriage with Yao Yao." Hearing the word marriage, Ji Tianxing's heartbeat sped up. His eyes widened, revealing a look of pleasant surprise. "Marriage? Uncle, you mean to say?" Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu smiled amiably and nodded. "That's right, it's your marriage. However, Tianxing, you should become his disciple first. We'll talk about the marriage later." Even though Ji Tianxing had a firm will and was as calm as ice, when he heard Yun Zhongqi and his wife's words, his heart couldn't help but speed up, and he was filled with pleasant surprise and anticipation. Many of the guests in the hall were also shocked and confused. They did not understand what was going on. Beside Ji Tianxing, Long Yunxiao and Ensuan's expressions also changed slightly. Their gazes were complicated. Long Yunxiao looked calm on the surface, but a deep sense of loss flashed through his eyes. His heart also felt a stabbing pain. Ensuan also maintained her composure, but her eyes revealed a hint of relief. At this time, Miracle Dr. Bailey sat on the main seat and looked at Ji Tianxing with a kind smile. He joked, "Tianxing, when you heard about marriage you seemed to have lost your soul. You only thought about your fiancé. Don't tell me you've already tossed this old man beyond the clouds?" Only then did Ji Tianxing come back to his senses. He smiled embarrassedly and said, No, old man, you've misunderstood." Miracle Dr. Bailey mercilessly exposed his lie. "Although that's what you say, it seems like that's what you're thinking." Everyone burst into laughter again and the atmosphere became more cheerful and joyful. Ji Tianxing was thinking about his marriage and Yun Yao, so he didn't waste any more time. He walked in front of Miracle Dr. Bailey and held up the apprenticeship tea delivered by the maid with both hands. He then bowed to Miracle Dr. Bailey. "Disciple Ji Tianxing greets Master. Master didn't abandon me and is willing to accept me as his disciple and teach me medical skills. Disciple is moved to tears. I will serve Master wholeheartedly and study medicine with all my heart. I will not disappoint Master's teachings." In front of everyone, Ji Tianxing finished the apprenticeship ceremony and offered the apprenticeship tea with both hands. Miracle Dr. Bailey was filled with gratification. He drank the apprenticeship tea with a smile and said 3 good words. "Tianxing, from today onwards, you are Master's last disciple. Master will treat you as his son and teach you everything he knows. In the future, when you learn Master's medical skills and alchemy skills, you must continue Master's wish to save people and help the world. You must bring Master's medical skills to greater heights." All the guests present witnessed this solemn moment with their own eyes. Although countless people were jealous and envious, they didn't dare to criticize or complain. They could only bless this pair of master and disciple. After all, among all the young talents present, no one was more outstanding than Ji Tianxing. No one was more qualified than him. Even the son of heaven Long Yunxiao, couldn't compare to Ji Tianxing. Finally, the apprenticeship ceremony was over. Ji Tianxing and Miracle Dr. Bailey finally became master and disciple. Tonight's matter would be spread by countless guests and spread throughout the central region. Everyone knew that it wouldn't be long before this matter caused a huge uproar in the central region. Countless cultivators would talk about it. Ji Tianxing's name would once again spread throughout the central region. He would be respected by tens of thousands of people and be envied and worshipped by countless cultivators. Miracle Dr. Bailey returned to his seat and looked at Ji Tianxing with a smile. He didn't say anything else. Ji Tianxing also returned to his seat on the left. He looked at Yun Zhongqi expectantly, waiting for him to announce the next matter. Yun Zhongqi stood up with a smile on his face. He said in a dignified voice, "Everyone, on this beautiful day Cloud Spirit Palace has two joyous events. I would like to announce the third joyous event. My daughter Yun Yao and Crown Prince Ji Tianxing got to know each other and loved each other. They have experienced many hardships and difficulties together. In countless life and death situations, they have trusted each other and helped each other. Such true feelings and love should be announced to the world for everyone to bear witness and bless. I would like to announce that Cloud Spirit Palace will accept Ji Tianxing as their son-in-law. Tonight, under the witness of all the guests, I would like to announce the engagement between my daughter Yun Yao and Ji Tianxing. From today onwards, anyone who goes against Ji Tianxing will be going against Cloud Spirit Palace. No matter who it is, if anyone dares to go against Ji Tianxing, they will have to bear the wrath of Cloud Spirit Palace and me." Yun Zhongqi's domineering and dignified voice spread out and reverberated in the night sky. Countless people were excited. They were extremely envious of Ji Tianxing. After tonight, apart from being the last disciple of Miracle Dr. Bailey, he would also have an awe-inspiring identity. He would be the son-in-law of Cloud Spirit Palace. He would be the husband of the prodigy Yun Yao. Yun Zhongqi announced this important news in front of everyone. It was equivalent to announcing to the world that Cloud Spirit Palace was Ji Tianxing's most reliable backer. From today onwards, Cloud Spirit Palace would openly help Ji Tianxing against the Duanmu and Murong families. This was a declaration of war. The experts at the scene all understood this, thus they were all excited and cheered loudly. The expressions of the spies who were disguised as guests and hiding in the crowd suddenly changed. They were both panicked and angry. Chapter 769. The guests inside and outside the main hall were all clapping and cheering. The atmosphere was jubilant and warm. The various forces that were on good terms with Cloud Soul Palace all praised Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao, saying that they were a match made in heaven. Even the ordinary guests were looking forward to this and offered their blessings. Only Long Yunxiao could not feel happy or smile. Although he looked calm on the surface and did not lose his composure on the spot. However, his heart was filled with bitterness and a trace of sorrow. He had once fantasized that one day he would be engaged to Yun Yao under the eyes and witness of tens of thousands of people. However, now that Yun Yao was about to get engaged, he was just an unimportant spectator. The person he loved the most, the person he could not let go of the most, was finally going to marry someone else. However, he could only watch helplessly and he had to maintain his poise and smile. At this moment, who could understand the sorrow in his heart? He lowered his head and picked up the wine cup on the table. He raised his head and drank it in one gulp. A trace of deep sorrow flashed across his eyes. At this moment he suddenly felt a soft and boneless hand reach out from beside him and hold his hand. This jade-like slender hand was delicate but warm. A trace of warmth passed through his palm and into his heart. He turned his head to look beside him and saw Ensuan staring at him. Her eyes were filled with tenderness. Ensuan did not open her mouth to comfort him. She did not even show any concern or worry. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were filled with determination and stubbornness. If she opened her mouth to comfort or dissuade him, Long Yunxiao would most likely think that she was sympathizing with him and would not care. After all, he was born proud and aloof. However, Ensuan's calmness caused a trace of warmth to appear in his sorrowful heart. He gradually calmed down. He stared at Ensuan and looked at her for a moment. Then he slowly closed his fingers and held her hand. At this moment Long Yunxiao's heart calmed down. He gradually felt relieved and indifferent. And Suan was also secretly happy and gratified. At least she was already trying to understand him and find her way into his heart. She was already beginning to see results. He suddenly felt very grateful to Yunyao. At that time she and Yunyao were trapped in the magic cave in Black Ink Mountain. If it weren't for Yunyao's words, she still didn't know what to do. She was afraid that she would still be jealous. Now as she held Long Yunxiao's broad and powerful hand, she suddenly rejoiced. At this moment the guard commander at the entrance of the hall shouted loudly, "Eldest Miss has arrived." The guests in the hall all turned their heads to look at the entrance. 6 elegant and graceful maids escorted a peerless beauty who was wearing a luxurious gown into the hall. Like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon, the 6 maidservants stood by the side of this peerless beauty, and it further accentuated her peerless beauty, graceful figure, and innate cold and noble bearing. She was wearing a light blue dress with a white cloud pattern and a red silk belt inlaid with jade, outlining her slender waist. Her cheeks were beautiful, like the perfect masterpiece of the creator. It was breathtaking. When she walked through the hall with a dignified bearing and walked to the main seat, she was like a fairy descending from the 9th heaven. She was so holy that it made people feel ashamed of their inferiority. She was the eldest miss of Cloud Soul Palace, the peerless beauty whose name shook the world, Yunyao. In the past she always wore a plain white dress without any makeup, giving people the impression that she was cold and noble. Tonight she had put on a splendid dress and meticulously dressed up. She was so beautiful that it was suffocating. She was dignified and holy like a fairy, making people admire her but not dare to profane her. The hall was silent as countless gazes gathered on her. Many guests had witnessed her peerless beauty with their own eyes. They were stunned and their faces were full of admiration. Ji Tianxing also stared at Yunyao with a smile on his face. His eyes were full of tenderness. "Yao Yao, we've gone through so many ups and downs. We've finally come to this day hand in hand and received the recognition of Cloud Soul Palace. I've waited for this day for too long," he murmured silently. His heart was filled with gratification and excitement. After a while, Yunyao walked in front of Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi. She bowed in a dignified manner. After that, she stood beside her mother, Bailey Ningsu, and looked at Ji Tianxing with a gentle gaze. The two of them looked at each other and saw the tenderness in each other's eyes. At this moment, Yun Zhongqi smiled and said to Ji Tianxing, "Tianxing, come here. Tonight, in front of all the guests and with everyone as witnesses, Cloud Soul Palace has set up a marriage contract for the two of you." Ji Tianxing nodded and walked over with a smile on his face. He stood side by side with Yunyao and faced Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu. Miracle Dr. Bailey personally presided over the engagement ceremony and read out the marriage contract and vows for the two of them. "I'm glad that today's ceremony is completed and a good match is sealed. The two surnames are united in marriage and the contract is signed in one place. The two of you are well matched and have the same name. Look at the peach blossoms today and it's suitable for a family. I'm sure he'll be old and withered. With the promise of growing old, I'll write to the Hongjian so that the alliance of red leaves can be recorded in the Mandarin book. I hope that the two of you will treat each other with respect and enjoy the joy of fish and water forever. I hope that the two of you will help each other sincerely and make a vow to become a couple of Mandarin ducks." When Miracle Dr. Bailey's dignified voice resounded in the hall, an incomparably solemn atmosphere filled the hall. Everyone's expression was solemn as they looked at Ji Tianxing and Yunyao with blessings in their eyes. They wanted to witness this sacred and romantic moment for the two of them. Countless young men and women looked at them with envy and yearning. Who didn't want to get married to their sweetheart on such a sacred occasion and say the vows of eternal love that had been repeated thousands of times in their hearts? Who didn't want to be a match made in heaven with their sweetheart and grow old together? Tonight, Ji Tianxing and Yunyao, the perfect couple, had finally achieved their wish. How could they not be envious? After Miracle Dr. Bailey finished reading the marriage vows, he handed the two red and gilded marriage vows to Ji Tianxing and Yunyao. Yunyao's marriage vows would naturally be kept by her parents. Ji Tianxing's marriage vows had to be sent back to Tianjin region and handed to his father to get his approval. After all, the marriage of a child still needed the approval of their parents. This was the rule. After all the rules and ceremonies were over, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao held the ceremonial tea that the maids had brought over and offered it to Yun Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu. Yun Zhongqi and his wife were in a good mood and were gratified. They received the tea with smiles on their faces and drank it in front of everyone. After that, they said a few words of blessings. With that, the ceremony was completed. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao's marriage vows were set. From now on, Ji Tianxing was Yun Yao's fiancé and Yun Yao was his fiancé. As for when the two of them would get married, they would have to wait for the marriage vows to be sent back to the Tianjin region chief's mansion. Then they would have to see how Ji Chongkong and Yun Zhongqi would discuss it. Chapter 770. After the engagement ceremony ended, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao left the main hall hand in hand. The guests inside and outside the main hall all applauded and cheered as they congratulated Yun Zhongqi and his wife. Tonight, Cloud Spirit Palace had 3 joyous events. The atmosphere was joyous. Next, Yun Zhongqi was going to announce the 4th event. Now that the Duanmu family had suffered a great loss, they were only relying on their remaining resources to survive. The situation in Middle State was still chaotic and confusing. The herb business was almost half empty. Every city was short of elixirs and herbs. This caused the price of various elixirs and herbs to skyrocket. Cloud Spirit Palace cared about the people of Middle State. They could not bear to see their fellow martial artists worried about this. At this time of chaos, Cloud Spirit Palace was willing to step forward and take on the responsibility of protecting the peace of Middle State. Cloud Spirit Palace would use all their resources to build elixir workshops. They would open medicine shops and pharmacies in every city to provide elixirs to the martial artists of Middle State. However, Cloud Spirit Palace's ability was limited. They would not be able to cover all the cities in Middle State. Such an important matter of supporting the world requires the help of all the heroes present. Cloud Spirit Palace sincerely invited all the powerful families to join in and work together to protect the peace of Middle State. Of course, this was just a pretentious excuse. Cloud Spirit Palace had announced this to the world. Everyone knew Cloud Spirit Palace's true intention. They wanted to use this opportunity to command all the heroes and take over the herb business market in Middle State. The Duanmu family had started with the elixir business and had not declined for thousands of years. The herb business was the Duanmu family's lifeline. Once Cloud Spirit Palace took over, they would not be able to make a comeback. Cloud Spirit Palace would not be able to take over all the herb business in Middle State. They needed the support and help of all the powerful families. Furthermore, the famous miracle Dr. Bailey would personally take charge of the situation and do his best to supervise this matter. The various powerful forces that were present tonight already knew about this news and had made up their minds to board the big ship that was Cloud Soul Palace. After all, Cloud Spirit Palace was one of the 3 big families. Its strength was not weaker than the Duanmu families. Furthermore, Miracle Dr. Bailey's reputation had spread across the continent. His medical skills were unparalleled. He was the absolute authority in the field of alchemy. With Miracle Dr. Bailey overseeing Cloud Spirit Palace and personally overseeing the situation, what was there for everyone to be worried about? Cloud Spirit Palace ate the meat while they drank the soup. It was a great fortune and opportunity. Therefore, when Yun Zhongqi announced the news, all the powerful families and forces responded. The situation and the scene in the hall were truly overwhelming. Countless experts felt their blood boiling and were filled with excitement and anticipation. When Long Yunxiao also spoke and expressed his support for Cloud Spirit Palace and offered help, the various experts became even more enthusiastic. Following this, Yun Zhongqi and the powerful beings of the various forces discussed the next step of the plan. As early as 2 months ago, Cloud Soul Palace had been preparing for this. In reality, Cloud Spirit Palace had already secretly controlled the pill business in Central State's 100 cities and made many arrangements. More than 30 powerful forces had long since submitted to Cloud Spirit Palace and were already busy handling this matter. Tonight, Yun Zhongqi was only telling everyone about this matter and inviting more factions to join. As for how to act, how to deploy and plan, it was all up to Cloud Spirit Palace to decide. The various forces only needed to follow orders. Yun Zhongqi and the powerful beings of the various forces were discussing important matters in the hall. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao had already returned to Hefeng Garden. In any case, the two of them already knew what to do. It was all up to Yun Zhongqi to handle. There was no need for them to worry. In an exquisite and elegant room, the red candles flickered and the atmosphere was charming and warm. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao sat at the table with a cup of spiritual tea in front of them. Steam rose from the tea and it emitted a refreshing fragrance. The two of them looked at each other and their eyes were filled with tenderness. Their hearts were filled with love. Ji Tianxing held Yun Yao's hand and said with a gentle smile, "Yao Yao, this day has finally come. From today onwards you are my fiancé. I hope that the marriage contract can be sent back to Tianjin region as soon as possible and get my father's approval. My father and Uncle Yun will discuss our wedding date. I can't wait to take you as my wife." Yun Yao smiled faintly and lowered her head slightly. Her fair and beautiful face was a little red. Perhaps it was because of the red candles or because she was shy. She was too embarrassed to say anything and only nodded slightly. At this moment her beautiful face was flushed red and there was a hint of shyness in her gentleness. She was so beautiful that it could move one's soul. Ji Tianxing couldn't help but reach out his hands and pull her into his embrace. He lowered his head and kissed her thin lips. Even though Yun Yao was shy, she didn't avoid him. She closed her eyes and allowed him to kiss and comfort her gently. Even though her eyes were closed, she was still very nervous. Her long eyelashes were also trembling. The two of them hugged each other for a long time and didn't separate even after 15 minutes. Even though Yun Yao was as cold as ice, she melted in Ji Tianxing's gentleness and passion as she leaned on his shoulder. Just as the two of them were unable to separate from each other, a series of footsteps suddenly sounded from the courtyard outside the room. An armored guard captain rushed to the room with a serious expression and respectfully reported, "Eldest young miss, young Master Ji, the family head has ordered you to quickly go to the study room." Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao quickly separated and tidied up their slightly messy clothes. "Understood. You can leave now. We'll be there immediately." Ji Tianxing's voice was calm and dignified as he replied. After the guard captain left, Yun Yao frowned and asked in confusion, "What happened? Why is father urgently calling us to the study room? Did something happen?" Ji Tianxing also frowned. He had a bad premonition. "Let's go and see what's going on." After saying that, the two of them quickly left Hefeng Garden and rushed to Yun Zhongqi's study room. When the two of them arrived at the study room, they saw that there were already two people in the room. They were Yun Zhongqi and the son of heaven Long Yunxiao. The atmosphere was solemn and heavy. Long Yunxiao had a worried expression on his face. Yun Zhongqi held a communication jade slip in his hand and frowned. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao walked into the study room and greeted the two of them. Then they asked Yun Zhongqi, "Uncle, what happened?" Yun Zhongqi waved the communication jade slip in his hand and said with a serious expression, "Just now, Great Divine Master He Yu from the Monarch Residence personally sent me a communication jade slip. Something has happened in Central State City. Divine Master He Yu summoned the three of you back to the Monarch Residence immediately. He wants to entrust you with an important task." Although Divine Master He Yu didn't say what happened from his tone, I'm afraid that this matter is very serious and urgent. Yun Zhongqi sighed and said in a serious tone, "Tianxing Yao Yao, although tonight is the big day of your engagement, and you should be enjoying your time together. However, as the Emperor's sons, you must obey the orders of the Monarch Residence." Chapter 771. Ji Tianxing had originally planned to stay in Cloud Spirit Palace for 2 more days and return to Zhongzhou City after the birthday banquet. After all, he had just gotten engaged to Yun Yao, and he had just become Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple. There were still many things that he had yet to settle. However, Divine Master He Yu had personally sent a message to Cloud Spirit Palace, urgently summoning them back to the Monarch Residence. Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao realized the urgency of the situation. They did not dare to waste any time and left Cloud Spirit Palace overnight, rushing back to Zhongzhou City. In order to rush back to the Monarch Residence as soon as possible, Long Yunxiao rode the double-headed golden dragon with Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao. As for Heavenly Consort and Suan, she did not travel with the three of them. She was still in Cloud Spirit Palace. Long Yunxiao had brought her along with him, bringing along a guard of honor. After the birthday banquet in Cloud Spirit Palace ended, the guard of honor would naturally escort and Suan back to the monarch residence. A day passed by quickly. The double-headed golden dragon rushed back with all its might and finally arrived at the monarch residence late at night on the second day. After returning to the monarch residence, Ji Tianxing, Long Yunxiao, and Yun Yao went straight to Divine Master He Yu's Black Feather Palace. In the Black Feather Palace, the spacious and simple main hall was dimly lit, and the atmosphere was solemn. Divine Master He Yu, who was dressed in a black robe and black hair, was sitting cross-legged in the main hall with a solemn expression. 10 steps in front of him stood 2 thearchs with extraordinary auras. Both of them were thearchs of the monster clan, a man and a woman. The young man was tall and burly and his face was handsome and resolute. He wore a snow-white fox fur coat. The female thearch's face was extremely beautiful and her figure was slim. Her temperament was foxy and enchanting. When Ji Tianxing, Long Yunxiao, and Yun Yao entered the main hall and saw the young man and woman, they were instantly puzzled. Kun Wu and Fox Princess are here too? Did Divine Master He Yu not only gather the 3 of us, but also the 2 of them? What the hell is going on? Why did Divine Master He Yu call all 5 of us back? There was no doubt that the young thearchs of the monster clan were Kun Wu and Fox Princess. The 3 of them were filled with doubts. They stopped 10 steps in front of Divine Master He Yu and bowed in unison. Greetings, Divine Master Black Feather. Divine Master He Yu raised his eyes and glanced at the 3 of them. He said in a dignified tone, "You guys came back very quickly and just in time. Since everyone is here, there's no time to lose. I'll get down to business." Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, Long Yunxiao, Kun Wu, and Fox Princess finally understood that God's sovereign Black Feather had only summoned the 5 of them. This also made them realize that what Divine Sage Black Feather was about to announce was not only urgent, but also somewhat special. Divine Expert Black Feather said with a solemn expression, "Just 10 days ago an extremely strange thing happened in Central Continent City. Some of the heirs and young talents of the grand families had disappeared for no reason. A few days later when they were found, all of their temperaments had changed greatly. They had become bloodthirsty, manic, insane, and delirious. They didn't even recognize their own family and killed everyone they saw like mad demons. They cruelly murdered the people of their own families. Anyone who was killed by them would turn into a pile of white bones. Their deaths were extremely strange. Those rich and powerful families all had an impressive background and influence. They had great authority in Central Continent City. After this incident, the aristocratic families were at a loss of what to do and reported the matter to the City Lord's mansion. The City Lord's mansion's guards went to the various grand families to investigate, but they couldn't find any clues. Instead, they lost many elite guards. Once the guards got close to the mad young talents, they would be killed in a strange manner. Their deaths were the same as the others. Their flesh and blood had all dissipated and they turned into a pile of white bones. Not even a drop of blood was left. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing, Long Yunxiao, and the others' expressions changed. They were filled with shock. At the same time, they also guessed Divine Master He Yu's meaning. Divine Master He Yu continued, "In these 10 days, similar things kept happening. Moreover, the people who went mad were all the young talents of the grand families of the human and demon clans. The grand families all had extraordinary statuses in Central Continent City. Those young disciples were all famous young talents in Central Continent City. After such a thing happened, the City Lord's mansion had to think of a way to solve it. Otherwise, when the news spread, it would definitely cause chaos and panic in Central Continent City. However, the City Lord's mansion couldn't find the reason or clues, so they reported this matter to the monarch's mansion. Therefore, this seat urgently ordered you to return and discuss this matter in person." Divine Master He Yu's dignified gaze swept across the faces of the 5 people. He said in a deep voice, "This matter concerns the stability of Central Continent City. The monarch's mansion has to solve it as soon as possible. After careful consideration, this seat has decided to let the 5 of you assist the City Lord's mansion in investigating this matter. Do you have any objections?" Ji Tianxing, Kun Wu, and the others all understood that Divine Master He Yu naturally had his reasons for making such a decision. Yun Yao had the heavenly spirit's sacred body and was very sensitive to the aura of the various races. She was very suitable to participate in the investigation and would be very useful. Long Yunshao was the emperor of the human race's imperial court. He represented the imperial court and should participate in this matter. Ji Tianxing was powerful and meticulous. He was also very familiar with Yun Yao and Long Yunshao and had a tacit understanding with them. Of course they had to act together. As for Kun Wu and Fox Princess, one was the prince of the monster race and the other was the first princess of the monster race. Since such a thing had happened, the two of them naturally had to shoulder this responsibility. No one had any objections to Divine Master He Yu's decision. They all nodded and swore to investigate this matter as soon as possible. Divine Master He Yu nodded in satisfaction. He took out 5 scrolls from his interspatial ring and handed them to everyone. These are the scrolls presented by the City Lord's mansion. They record the information of the few aristocratic families and everything related to this matter. After you read them carefully, you should act as soon as possible. This seat has high hopes for all of you. I believe that all of you will not disappoint this seat. Ji Tianxing, Kun Wu, and the others quickly took the scrolls and put them away solemnly. Only then did they bow and bid farewell to Divine Master He Yu. After the 5 of them walked out of the Black Feather Palace, they stopped outside the gate and gathered together to discuss this matter. Kun Wu said with a solemn expression, "Just now I roughly flipped through the scrolls. The few aristocratic families that were involved in this matter are all famous families in Central State City. They have a lot of prestige in the city. A few of the monster race aristocratic families are in the West District and a few of the human race aristocratic families are in the South District. Since that's the case, we should act separately. We should be able to find the clues and the results faster." Long Yunshao nodded and expressed his agreement. "Kun Wu, Fox Princess, I'll leave the monster race aristocratic families to you too. The 3 of us will investigate the aristocratic families in the South District." Ji Tianxing said with a solemn tone, "Central State City is the holy land of martial arts. With the Emperor's mansion guarding this place, there are still people who dare to stir up trouble and stir up such a storm. If this matter is a conspiracy of some power, then the other party must have come prepared and their power is very strong. Everyone must be careful." Yun Yao thought for a moment and said with a cold voice, "From Divine Master He Yu's description, this matter is very likely related to the demon race." Chapter 772. Ji Tianxing, Kun Wu and the others discussed for a while before they split up to take action. Kun Wu and Fox Princess were the first to leave for the West District of Zhongzhou City. Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao and Long Yunshao flew toward the exit of the king's mansion, heading toward the South District. After 2 hours they left the king's mansion and arrived at the South District. During this time, Ji Tianxing used his spiritual sense to read the files and came up with a preliminary plan. Currently, 3 families are in trouble. The one closest to us is the Tang family. Let's go to the Tang family to check the situation. Long Yunshao and Yun Yao nodded in agreement and followed him to the Tang family. On the way to the Tang family, Ji Tianxing introduced the situation of the Tang family to them. The Tang family is a grand family that has been passed down for more than 400 years. They make a living by forging weapons and are very prestigious in Zhongzhou City. Moreover, the Tang family cooperates with the City Lord's mansion to provide weapons and equipment for the city guards. The current head of the Tang family, Tang Yelong, is a distinguished guest of the City Lord's mansion and has a good relationship with the City Lord. This man is generous and humble. He has a good reputation in Zhongzhou City and is highly respected. Tang Yelong has 3 sons and 2 daughters. They are all outstanding young talents. Among them, the eldest son, Tang Shu, has the most outstanding talent and is highly regarded by Tang Yelong. He will inherit the position of head of the Tang family in the future. Tang Shu is only 24 years old, but he has reached Sky Origin Stage 1. He has the chance to enter the king's mansion. However, he is the one who is in trouble this time. After listening to Ji Tianxing's introduction, Yun Yao and Long Yunshao sighed and felt pity. After 15 minutes, the 3 of them arrived at the gate of the Tang family's mansion. The Tang family's mansion occupied a vast area with a radius of 1,000 meters. It was very luxurious and solemn. After Long Yunxiao explained his identity and purpose to the guards at the gate, the guards immediately knelt down and saluted him. Someone then entered the mansion to report. After a while, a tall and sturdy middle-aged man with a dignified square face rushed to the gate to greet them. Tang Yelong respectfully welcomes the emperor and the two imperial princes. Your presence brings light to my humble abode. Tang Yelong bowed respectfully, a look of fear and trepidation on his face. Long Yunxiao slightly nodded as he raised his hand and said, Tang family head, please dispense with the formalities. You should already know the purpose of our visit. This sovereign and the two princes have come to the Tang mansion to resolve this matter. Of course, Tang Yelong understood what he meant. He nodded excitedly and said, Thank you, Your Highness and the two princes. You came just in time. Right now, everyone in the mansion is in a state of panic. If I hadn't forbidden the news to be spread, I'm afraid it would have already spread. Sirs, please come in. Let's have a chat. The situation was urgent, so Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao didn't waste any time. They just wanted to see Tang Xuqing's situation with their own eyes. Tang family head, there's no need for those unnecessary formalities. Time is of the essence. Why don't you take us to see your son directly? As you command, Your Majesty. Tang Yelong naturally had no objections and promptly cupped his hands in obeisance. He led Ji Tianxing's group of 3 into the Tang mansion, passing through the many courtyards and rushing to the backyard. Along the way they passed by 3 courtyards and saw the Tang family members, guards and servants. All of them looked distressed and worried. The entire Tang mansion was filled with a thick, gloomy and oppressive atmosphere that made one's heart heavy. When they arrived at the backyard, the whole place was quiet and there wasn't even a single guard or servant. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao were puzzled and asked Tang Yelong what was going on. Tang Yelong quickly explained, Sirs, my son is imprisoned in the dungeon, but he can only be imprisoned for a while. He can escape at any time and start a massacre in the mansion. In order to avoid more casualties, I ordered the guards and servants to withdraw from the backyard. No one else is allowed to approach. But even so, I have to personally go to the dungeon every 2 hours to check if my son has broken free from his shackles. Tang Yelong's words made Ji Tianxing, Long Yunxiao feel a trace of heaviness and sadness. The situation was much more serious and complicated than they had imagined. Soon they arrived at the entrance of the dungeon. Tang Yelong ordered 4 elite guards to guard the entrance while he personally led Ji Tianxing's group of 3 into the dungeon. The dungeon built by the Tang family was located 100 meters underground. It was built with indestructible black stones and was also set up with a Heaven Origin defensive formation. Ji Tianxing's group of 3 followed Tang Yelong into the underground and came to a spacious hall. The floor and walls of the hall were made of black stones, exuding a solemn and cold aura. More than a dozen gemstone lamps were lit on the surrounding walls, shining with a dazzling brilliance and illuminating the entire hall. Tang Yelong led the 3 to the center of the hall. He pointed at a refined iron grate under his feet and said, My son is imprisoned in that cell below. Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao lowered their heads and looked at the square refined iron grate on the ground, which looked like a gate. They saw that there was indeed a cold cell under the grate which was about 10 meters square with a dim yellow light inside. There was a black iron chain as thick as an arm on the northern wall of the cell. A young man in a brocade robe with disheveled hair was chained to it. The young man was Tang Yelong's eldest son, Tang Xuqing. He was struggling with all his might, pulling the cold iron chain on the wall, making clanking noises. Deep scratches were left on the wall made of black stones by his 10 fingers. The black iron chain nailed to the wall was also loosened by his tugging, causing many cracks to appear on the stone wall. He was roaring in a muffled voice, like a wild beast that had gone mad. He roared furiously from time to time. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed that this crazy murderer was actually a graceful and elegant young master. Ji Tianxing stared at Tang Xuqing for a while and then said to Tang Yelong in a deep voice, Patriarch Tang, please tell us the details of this matter. Tang Yelong's mood was very heavy. He quickly said, My 3 lords, my son went missing in the city 8 days ago. 5 days ago, the mansion's guards found him in a street in the southern part of the city. At that time he looked normal and wasn't injured, but his clothes were ragged and he was taciturn. The guards brought him back to the mansion, but that night his temperament greatly changed. He suddenly had a demonic nature and killed more than a dozen guards and maids in his courtyard. When I arrived, I only saw a lot of clothes and piles of bones on the ground. There wasn't even a trace of blood. After I subdued my son myself, I found a doctor to treat him. Who would have thought that the doctor's flesh and blood would melt and he would turn into a pile of bones as soon as he touched him? I had no choice but to imprison my son in the dungeon in the backyard. After listening to Tang Yelong's story, Yunyao was keenly aware of a problem. She asked, "Patriarch Tang, the doctor's flesh and blood melted and he turned into a pile of bones after touching your son? So to say, your son needs to touch others when he goes mad and kills people?" Tang Yelong was stunned for a moment. After recalling for a while, he shook his head and explained, "Your Highness, that's not the case. After I imprisoned my son in the dungeon, I chained him up with cold iron chains and sealed his acupoints in cultivation to prevent him from going mad and killing people again." Who would have thought that he would go even crazier the next afternoon? He was like a madman and his strength was so great that he broke the cold iron chains. The guards in the dungeon were 10 steps away from him, but they were strangely killed by him and turned into piles of bones. "My 3 lords, my son Tang Xuqing is my most beloved eldest son and the most outstanding son of my Tang family." Chapter 773. Tang Yelong's tone was full of sorrow and helplessness. Ji Tianxing, Yunyao and the other 2 could understand his feelings. Anyone who saw their most beloved son turn out like this would also be incomparably grieved and exhausted. Tang Yelong was a very courageous person to be able to remain calm and deal with this matter decisively, not letting the Tang family fall into chaos. However, Ji Tianxing and the other 2 couldn't find any clues after observing through the grate for a while. Tang Xuqing, who was in the cell, had been roaring angrily and struggling desperately to break free from the iron chains. He was like an enraged beast that was about to devour its prey, exuding a ferocious and bloodthirsty aura all over his body. Other than that, they couldn't see anything else. Yunyao frowned and observed for a while. Then she said to Tang Yelong, "Patriarch Tang, can you tell me in detail the scene when your son went crazy and killed people? How did he turn them into bones?" Tang Yelong was stunned and didn't know how to describe and explain it. He thought for a while and immediately had an idea. Then he said to Yunyao, "Your Highness, please wait for a moment." After saying that, he turned and left the hall and gave an order to the guard outside the dungeon. After a while he returned to Ji Tianxing and the other 2. A middle-aged guard in armor followed behind him. The middle-aged guard was holding a food box in his hand. He bowed his head respectfully and fearfully, not daring to breathe loudly. Tang Yelong pointed to the cell under his feet and ordered in a dignified voice, "Send this supper to the eldest young master." When the middle-aged guard heard this, his body suddenly shook. His eyes widened in horror and his whole body trembled. "Master, The middle-aged guard was obviously full of fear and instinctively wanted to refuse. However, Tang Yelong looked at him with a dignified expression and an invisible pressure was generated. He shouted in a deep voice, "This is an order." After saying that, he reached out and opened a door on the fine iron grate, revealing a stone staircase below. How could the middle-aged guard dare to disobey the patriarch's order? He hesitated for a moment and could only brace himself. Trembling with fear, he passed through the grate and walked down the stone staircase to the cell below. There were only 20 steps, but he used 100 breaths of time to walk through them and enter the dimly lit prison cell. Tang Xuqing, who was chained to the wall, immediately raised his head and glared at him. He licked his lips with a bloodthirsty expression. Tang Xuqing let out a muffled growl, as excited and manic as a wild beast that was about to hunt. The middle-aged guard was so scared that his legs went soft. His whole body was trembling like a sieve. He slowly moved closer to Tang Xuqing. "Young master. This is the supper that old master asked me to deliver to you." The middle-aged guard walked until he was 10 steps away from Tang Xuqing. He didn't dare to come any closer. He hurriedly threw the food box on the ground and said in a trembling voice. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Tang Xuqing pounced on him like a tiger pouncing on a sheep. Clank clank clank. Several iron chains were pulled taut. Tang Xu was like a hungry wolf pouncing on its prey. He opened his mouth and let out a manic roar. His whole body was emitting a cold and terrifying aura. Shua. The middle-aged guard was immediately enveloped by a dark red mist. His skin and flesh melted and disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. He turned into a dark red blood mist and flew into Tang Xuqing's open mouth. The middle-aged guard stood where he was. He couldn't move or resist. He couldn't even make a sound. In just a few breaths, all the flesh on his body melted and turned into a dark red blood mist, which was completely devoured by Tang Xuqing. He was ordered to deliver supper to Tang Xuqing, but he had become Tang Xuqing's supper. Clank clank. The middle-aged guard turned into a pile of white bones. He was wrapped in black armor and fell to the ground. There wasn't even a drop of blood on the cold floor of the prison cell. Such a horrifying scene caused everyone to be filled with astonishment, and their expressions became extremely unsightly. Even though Ji Tianqing, Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao were experienced and knowledgeable, they had never seen such a horrifying scene. So that's how it is. His killing methods are indeed strange and terrifying. Long Yunxiao sucked in a breath of cold air. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Tang Xuqing's mutation is most likely related to the demon race. Yun Yao's face was cold. She said in an icy tone, "Only the demon race has such cruel and vicious methods." As she spoke, she hurriedly used a secret technique. She used the talent of the heavenly spirit sacred body to investigate Tang Xuqing in the prison cell. She saw Tang Xuqing use a secret technique similar to the demon race. She was basically sure that Tang Xuqing's mutation was related to the demon race. However, when she used the secret technique to investigate, she found that there was only a trace of blood in the prison cell. There was no aura of the demon race. There was no aura of the demon race on Tang Xuqing's body, nor was there any sign of him being demonized. This result immediately caused her to frown and reveal a puzzled expression. How can there be no aura of the demon race? He killed the innocent like a madman. What he used was clearly the demon race's method. Yun Yao believed that there was no problem with her heavenly spirit sacred body bloodline. Then the problem must be with Tang Xuqing. There was definitely a big problem with Tang Xuqing. At this time, Tang Xuqing became more and more violent after devouring the middle-aged guard's blood mist. Ah ah ah. He roared like a madman. His body twisted with all his might. He burst out with an incomparably tyrannical strength and struggled with all his might. Several thick iron chains were twisted and deformed. They creaked and cracks continuously appeared on the stone walls. Looking at his posture, it wouldn't be long before he could break the iron chains and escape from the prison cell. Tang Yelong's expression became serious. He hurriedly explained to Ji Tianqing and the other two, "These days my son has been imprisoned in the dungeon. However, every 1 or 2 days he would go berserk to the extreme and become extremely powerful. I sealed his acupoints and cultivation, but it didn't work. Even suppressing him with a formation didn't work. He could still break free and escape from the prison cell. He started a massacre in the mansion. These days more than 80 people in the mansion have been killed by him." After Tang Yelong finished speaking, Long Yunxiao looked at him indifferently and asked in a deep voice, "Tang Xuqing has killed more than 80 people. Why didn't you put him to death earlier?" Tang Yelong lowered his head in fear and trepidation. He hurriedly explained, "Your Majesty, Xuqing is my most beloved eldest son. He's also the most promising one. He's the hope of our Tang family. How can I bear to kill my most beloved son? Moreover, he only became like this because he met with an accident. If we can find out the truth and the reason, maybe he can return to normal." In short, Tang Yelong couldn't bear to kill his most beloved son. He still had a lot of hope to see Tang Xuqing return to his original state. Tang Xuqing's life is a life. Don't tell me that other people's lives are not? Long Yunxiao frowned and angrily shouted in a dignified tone. Tang Yelong's expression changed. He immediately wanted to kneel and beg for mercy. Chapter 774. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao changed their expressions. No. You can't go down there. It's too dangerous. Tianqing, calm down. Tang Xuqing's condition is too weird. Both of them tried to persuade him. They looked worried. Tang Yelong was also anxious. He waved his hand and said, "My lord, please don't get close to my son. It's too dangerous. When my son got rid of the shackles, I had to ask the elders to help me catch him. But even so, the elders of the Tang family were killed by my son one after another. As the head of the Tang clan, Tang Yelong was quite powerful. He had reached the 5th level of the Sky Origin stage and was quite powerful. The elders of the Tang clan were at the 2nd or 3rd level of the Sky Origin stage, but they were still devoured by Tang Xuqing and turned into a pile of bones. From this, it could be seen that Tang Xuqing's strength in a berserk state was truly terrifying to the extreme. The three of them tried to persuade him. Tianqing smiled confidently. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry. I'll be fine. If I don't observe him, how can I find the clues and find out the truth?" Yun Yao heard his firm tone. She said without hesitation, "Tianqing, I'll go down with you." Long Yunshao said hurriedly, "I'll go down with you too in case of any accident." Tianqing pointed at the cell under his feet and shook his head. "The cell is too small. Too many people will get in the way. Don't worry. I'm sure I can get out safely." With that, he stepped through the iron door in the grill and walked down the black stone steps into the dark cell. Tang Xuqing, who was in a frenzy, became more excited when he saw Qin Haodong in the cell. He was like a hungry wolf seeing a lamb. Tang Xuqing roared at the top of his voice. He waved his arms and kicked his feet. He was eager to attack Tianqing. However, he couldn't get close to Tianqing because of the cold iron chains that bound his limbs and waist. Tianqing slowly walked towards Tang Xuqing. His sharp eyes stared at Tang Xuqing as he carefully observed him. There's no demonic aura around his body. His eyes are normal and there's no redness. His skin and nails don't show any signs of being demonized. As Tianqing observed, he silently calculated in his heart. He observed very carefully even Tang Xuqing's fingernails, skin and hair so as not to miss any clues. Finally, when he was 10 steps away from Tang Xuqing's eyes glowed with excitement. "Ah!" Tang Xuqing pounced at him with all his might. He opened his mouth as wide as he could and spat out a dark red mist that swept towards him. In that instant, Tianqing only felt an icy cold wind assault his body. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar and even his blood was about to freeze. Not only that, but the dark red mist that Tang Xuqing spat out also carried a nauseating stench. Tianqing knew very well that it was this dark red mist that could melt a person's flesh and blood into a bloody mist after enveloping them. He had personally witnessed the process of the middle-aged guard being devoured, so he was already prepared. How could he let Tang Xuqing have his way? When the dark red mist attacked him, he changed his footsteps and dodged it in a flash. Swoosh! The mysterious and eerie dark red mist brushed past Tianqing and missed him. Tianqing was unharmed. He immediately activated the third eye on his forehead and continued to observe with the Thunder Spirit eyes. Tang Xuqing became even more furious and manic. He pounced and struggled like a ferocious beast. He continuously spat out dark red mist from his mouth, wanting to devour Tianqing's flesh and blood. Tianqing's feet moved in a mysterious footwork and dodged as fast as lightning. His figure became blurry and hazy, leaving behind afterimages in the secret room. Tang Xuqing attacked him more than a dozen times and spat out more than a dozen mouthfuls of dark red mist, but he still failed to hit him. Tianqing was still unharmed. He even took the opportunity to observe Tang Xuqing thoroughly. He finally found a clue. Therefore he retreated to the edge of the cell and stood still 30 steps away from Tang Xuqing. This distance was safe. Tang Xuqing roared angrily and manically, but he no longer attacked. Tianqing frowned and pondered. He recalled the scene when the Devil Emperor was born in the Sky-bearing sect. After a while he suddenly understood something and a bright light flashed in his eyes. He looked up at the ceiling of the cell and looked at Yun Yao and Long Yunshao through the bars. He said in a low voice, "I think I know what happened. Yao Yao, do you still remember how I severely injured the Devil Emperor when we had a battle of life and death? After the Devil Emperor was seriously injured, he had to devour the Blood Demon King's flesh and soul to have the strength to escape." Yun Yao nodded and said, "That's right. I remember it clearly." Long Yunxiao also frowned and asked, Tianqing, what did you find? Ji Tianqing pointed at Tang Xuqing and said in a low voice, just now he spat out dark red mist to devour my flesh and blood. I saw a ball of blood-black energy surging in his throat. I'm not unfamiliar with that kind of dark red mist. When the Devil Emperor devoured the Blood Demon King, he used that kind of power. Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao changed their expressions when they heard this. Their eyes became very serious. It's related to the Devil Emperor? No wonder a noble young master has become a murderous maniac. He's so cruel and bloodthirsty. Ji Tianqing nodded and continued, Tang Xuqing used to be a normal person. He was only at the first level of Sky Origin stage. Now he's become like a demon and his power has increased several times. I suspect that there's some demon hiding in his body that made him like this. After listening to his analysis, Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao thought for a while and nodded to show that they agreed. When Tang Yelong heard the words Devil Emperor and Demon, he realized the seriousness of the matter. He became even more worried and anxious. What should we do? Prince Tianqing, please save my son. Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao looked at Ji Tianqing expectantly and asked, Tianqing, do you have any ideas? Ji Tianqing nodded and said to Tang Yelong seriously, Master Tang, we were ordered to investigate this matter. If I want to find out the truth and the reason, I have to do one thing for your son. However, I can't guarantee your son's life. He may be saved because of this, but he may also lose his life because of it. Tang Yelong hesitated. He looked very embarrassed and couldn't make a decision. Xuqing's nature is not bad. He became like this because he was killed by the Devil Emperor. He's the hope of our Tang clan. He's my son. I can't let him die like this. Long Yunxiao frowned and said seriously, Master Tang, Tang Xuqing has become like this. He has lost his mind and humanity. He killed the innocent. How is he different from a demon? Chapter 775. Long Yunxiao's words made Tang Yelong fall into silence. He hesitated for a moment and finally made up his mind. I'll do as you say, son of heaven. He sighed and looked at Tang Xuqing in the cell. He said in a complicated tone, Son, I'm sorry, but I can't let you kill more people. Life and death are predestined. Maybe this is your fate. After saying that, Tang Yelong turned around. He couldn't bear to see his son die so miserably. In the cell, Tang Xuqing was still struggling madly, trying to break free from the shackles of the iron chain. Ji Tianqing made up his mind and walked toward Tang Xuqing. Tang Xuqing's eyes suddenly turned cold. He became even more bloodthirsty and violent and was about to pounce on him. After 2 breaths, he was 10 steps away from Tang Xuqing. Tang Xuqing immediately pounced and spat out a dark red mist from his mouth. Ji Tianqing was already prepared. The moment Tang Xuqing opened his mouth, his figure flashed and rushed a few meters to the right. The dark red mist swept over, but it fell into the air and didn't touch him. Tang Xuqing became even more violent and angry. He struggled with the iron chain and made a clattering sound. He opened his mouth again and spat out a dark red mist toward Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing quickly dodged. His figure flickered and changed repeatedly with a mysterious footwork. In just 2 short breaths, he dodged 3 of Tang Xuqing's attacks and rushed behind Tang Xuqing like a ghost. At this moment, Tang Xuqing was about to turn around and attack him. He raised his right palm without hesitation and urged the mysterious black hole in his palm to slap Tang Xuqing's back. The distance between the 2 of them was too close, and Ji Tianqing's palm was too fast for Tang Xuqing to dodge. Bam! With a muffled sound, Ji Tianqing's right palm slapped Tang Xuqing's back fiercely. Puff! Tang Xuqing spat out a mouthful of blood and was almost sent flying. However, several cold iron chains bound him and the mysterious black hole in Ji Tianqing's right palm was also swallowing him. He was enveloped by an invisible mysterious power, and his body was frozen in place, completely powerless to resist. A mysterious and cold black light invaded his body and was pulling something out of his body. The incomparable pain caused him to bare his fangs and brandish his claws as he struggled, letting out heart-wrenching screams. Tang Yelong, who was sitting on top of the cell, heard his son's miserable screams. His heart tightened and he was extremely worried. Fortunately, Tang Xuqing's screams stopped abruptly after a while. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. He could no longer bear the intense pain and fainted. His body slumped to the ground and he no longer had any signs of life. Ji Tianxing slowly withdrew his right hand and stared at his palm with a solemn expression. There was a golden ball of light the size of a fist in his palm. Inside the ball of light was a strange purplish-black insect the size of an index finger. The strange worm's shape, length and thickness were all about the size of his index finger. Its entire body was purplish-black, and it seemed to have grown a layer of hard carapace and densely packed spikes. Its head was as sharp as an arrowhead, and 2 rows of sharp teeth could be seen when it opened its mouth. Ji Tianxing stared at the strange purplish-black insect for a while, but he couldn't recognize what it was. The strange purplish-black insect was struggling violently inside the golden ball of light. It kept tumbling and hitting the ball of light, trying to escape the confinement of the golden ball of light. In fact, it could even devour the true essence of the golden ball of light and bite out rows of holes in it. Ji Tianxing could only continuously transfer his true essence to repair the holes in the ball of light and trap the strange purplish-black insect inside. He glanced at the unconscious Tang Xuqing. Seeing that Tang Xuqing was still alive, he turned around and left the cell. After he went through the fine iron bars and returned to the hall of the dungeon, Long Yunxiao and Yun Yao immediately surrounded him. "Tianxing, what's that? A strange insect? Is this the monster you were talking about?" The 2 of them frowned and stared at the strange purplish-black insect, showing a surprised expression. Unfortunately, the 2 of them couldn't recognize what the strange purplish-black insect was. Yun Yao used the secret technique of the celestial spirit's sacred body to investigate and immediately found that the strange purplish-black insect contained a very powerful demonic aura. There was no doubt that it was an evil demon insect. Ji Tianxing said with a solemn expression, "This purplish-black insect is very powerful. Tang Xuqing's mutation was caused by it. We need to bring it back to the Monarch Mansion and hand it over to Divine Teacher Heiyu. Divine Teacher Heiyu is very knowledgeable. He might know what it is." Yun Yao and Long Yunxiao quickly nodded in agreement. Long Yunxiao took out a treasure box from his interspatial ring and put the purplish-black insect inside. The treasure box was specially made and extremely sturdy. No matter how strong the purplish-black insect was, it couldn't escape from it. Ji Tianxing saw that Tang Yelong was full of fear and worry, but he didn't dare to interrupt. He said, "Patriarch Tang, your son is not dead. He's just unconscious. Please heal him as soon as possible, but don't let him out. Keep him in the dungeon and observe him for a while." After that, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao quickly left the dungeon. Tang Yelong sent the 3 of them out of the dungeon and quickly went to check on Tang Xuqing's injuries. After 2 hours, Ji Tianxing and the other 2 returned to the Monarch Mansion. It was already dawn and there was a faint light in the sky. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao didn't dare to waste any time. They quickly rushed to the Black Feather Palace to report to Divine Teacher Heiyu. Divine Teacher Heiyu was still sitting in the cold and solemn hall. He was meditating with his eyes closed and quietly waiting for the news. "Greetings, Divine Teacher Heiyu." The 3 of them walked into the hall and bowed respectfully to Divine Teacher Heiyu. Divine Teacher Heiyu opened his eyes and looked at the 3 of them with a look of anticipation. He asked, "You're back so soon? Did you find any clues?" Long Yunxiao took out a treasure box from his interspatial ring and presented it to Divine Teacher Heiyu with both hands. "Divine Teacher Heiyu, fortunately we didn't let you down. We found the key clue. There's a strange purplish-black insect here. Tianxing found it in the body of the Tang family's young master. We suspect that the Tang family's young master's mutation is caused by this insect." "A purplish-black insect?" Divine Teacher Heiyu raised his eyebrows and quickly took the treasure box and opened it. When he opened the lid of the treasure box, the purplish-black insect was like a black stream of light. It rushed out of the treasure box as fast as lightning, trying to escape. However, Divine Teacher Heiyu clenched his fist and released an invisible spiritual energy. He wrapped the purplish-black insect and brought it back to him. No matter how the purplish-black insect struggled and twisted its body, it couldn't escape from the restraint of the spiritual energy. Divine Teacher Heiyu stared at the purplish-black insect for a moment and suddenly understood something. A glint flashed across his eyes. Ji Tianxing and Long Yunxiao were about to ask what the purplish-black insect was. At this moment 2 figures flew in from outside the hall. They were Kun Wu and Fox Princess. The 2 of them quickly walked into the hall and bowed to Divine Teacher Heiyu. Greetings, Divine Teacher Heiyu. We've returned to report to you. This is the clue we found. We found a purplish-black insect in the victim's body. As she spoke, Kun Wu took out a crystal box that contained the purplish-black insect and presented it to Divine Teacher Heiyu. Divine Teacher Heiyu accepted the crystal box and took out the purplish-black insect. The 2 purplish-black insects were wrapped in spiritual energy. They floated in the air and struggled with all their might. Everyone looked at Divine Teacher Heiyu with burning eyes. They were all looking forward to it. Divine Teacher Heiyu said with a grave expression, "You guessed right. This purplish-black insect is the culprit." You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.